where you are right now. And that's like the sweet spot of message boards.
There's more reason for it now, though, than there was 10 years ago, because I understand the PTSD that has happened to Husker Nation over the past 10 years. I understand you being dubious of the media because of what has happened over the past 6 years. I think the media learned a lot from the entire Scott Frost tenure at Nebraska. I can understand fans having their doubts about the media or being that fair weather fan of saying, you know what, up until the point where I see Nebraska come back, I am going to be a quote unquote bad fan. Like, I understand that side of things.
Oh, and I don't even just mean that, right? Like, I understand being like, hey, I'm not spending money on this until they figure out what they're doing, or I'm not going to trust these people because they were covering up stuff for Scott Frost for 5 years or whatever. Like, I get that. Like, I actually understand people who have gotten to that point. What I don't understand is, let's just use the news of the week, for instance, right? Okay, on Sunday and early Monday, seems like Nebraska is going to get Kyle McCord, right? That's super exciting. Big upgrade over what was in the room. No offense to the guys still in the room. Big upgrade over what was in the room this year. Everybody's pretty happy. Monday night, we hear Dylan Raiola is super interested in Nebraska as well. Everybody's McCord and Raiola, greatest thing in the world. Let's do this. By Wednesday, I think, maybe by Wednesday, McCord is out.
Wednesday afternoon. Yep.
And so we're sitting there, and this is where I don't get it, right? Where people, I mean, it still looks like we're getting Raiola. I mean, then and now, still looks like we're getting Raiola. And people think that the world is over because Kyle McCord decided not to come to Nebraska, but it still seems like they're getting Dylan Raiola. Those are the people that I'm like, wait, how did a week ago getting Dylan Raiola over Kyle McCord? Like, if somebody had just a week ago been like, hey, Kyle McCord can commit here or Dylan Raiola can commit here, you got it.
And it kind of gets back to the point that I made yesterday on the show of that there's two ways you could have seen that Kyle McCord news, as a domino falling or as the sky is falling. And based on everything you've seen in the past decade as being a Husker fan, I don't blame you for seeing that news and saying the sky is falling. This is going to end up blowing back up in Matt Rule's face. This isn't going to work out. It's the worst possible situation is going to end up happening from this. I don't blame a Husker fan for regressing back into that mindset because of everything you've seen in the past 10 years. Everything you've seen in the past 10 years would lead you to believe this is a cursed program.
The worst possible outcome.
And the worst possible outcome is going to happen, which is that Nebraska
loses
tried
everybody
to play their cards. Yeah. And they thought they were getting Raiola, so they pushed out McCord. They pushed out Daniel Kalen. Raiola is not going to commit, and Nebraska's going to end up with Chubba Purdy and no other quarterbacks next season. I understand why your mind goes there.
And again, I understand that as well. But there is a segment of the population, and this is where I don't get it. There's a segment of the population, and it's probably a very small segment, to be fair. Twitter and message boards are not a good representation of the entire population. I understand that. But there are people out there that they think the sky is falling, even though they still think Dylan Raiola is coming. They think just their expectations had gotten so warped in like a 24-hour period that Nebraska was going to get McCord for 1 year, Raiola for 2 or 3 after that, and everything was going to be perfect. And that their expectations had gotten so warped in just like 24 hours that they couldn't even be happy about the prospect of a generational prospect at quarterback still coming to campus. That's where you lose me, right?
Yeah.
If I understand the paranoia of, oh no, they're going to lose everybody. I totally get that. That would be the most Nebraska thing to happen in this situation. The most 21st century Nebraska thing to happen in this situation. I get that. What I don't get is it's like I think, I don't remember, some comedian made a joke one time about how you had no idea there was Wi-Fi on a plane. And then when the Wi-Fi stops working on the plane, you lose your mind. It's like, this didn't even feel like a possibility 30 minutes ago. It's like you were mad about a thing that you didn't even know was a possibility, but your expectation changed so quickly that all of a sudden you're mad that you don't have Wi-Fi on the plane now. It's like this, you didn't know this was a technology that was even possible.
You're mad.
Exactly. But the side note to that, completely different topic. I mean, am I the only person that if there's no Wi-Fi on the plane, I'm going to be turning on that cellular? Is that just me? Like,
I think it might just be you. Yeah.
see, and that's why I never get caught because it's just me.
I mean, I feel like it would be easier.
What's gonna happen? The plane's gonna fall out of the sky.
So
The worst thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna be like, "Oh, your cellular's messing with our communications. Whoever that is, stop it." I'm like, "Oh man, they got me," and I'll shut it off. But that's never happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be totally honest. I have no idea if that's still a thing that affects planes. It seems.
Mythbusters tested it.
Did they?
And they said it didn't.
I think so.
And if the Mythbusters say something, I am taking that as gospel.
100% accurate. I always assumed that it was like the old original cell phone technology was too similar to what the plane used for navigation and communications that it would like cross, kind of like when you've got like a CB radio. And if you're on the wrong channel, you can hear other people's conversations. Like I assumed it was something to that. I know nothing about how technology works, so let me be clear here. Go ahead.
I'll say Travis brings up a good point. That the question is do you get service on your cell up in the air? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's never very good, but if you're in a pinch and you need it, it works out.
Fair. Totally fair.
I was taking an umpiring test last year on a flight.
It was really, really important.
It was really, really important. It was right before the season. We needed to get it done. And I was sitting up there like with the little tray table and my test out there, filling out all the answers. Nailed the test, dude. So I had enough service to get the answers that I needed from that online rule book.
That's the urgent thing you had to take care of was I have to take my umpiring test.
Oh, it's a big deal. They're using that for like district and state selection. Like I need to go nail that. And they have one that's open book and one that's closed book.
Oh, so you had to get
was
the
open book version. And it was a trip to Vegas. Lord knows I wasn't going to be taking that test in Vegas.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm going to get it done on the flight. Absolutely nailed the test. I'm pretty sure I got like a 98 out of 100.
Was there an option to do the test before your flight?
That's a question that I don't feel comfortable answering.
You don't want to
at this point in time.
You don't incriminate yourself.
No.
Fair.
Yes, that was an option.
Yep,
though.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
I don't even recognize what we're doing.
Poor time management, Shane.
I have always wondered, like, okay, we're really trusting, like, either the technology of airplane navigation and communication is way too fragile, and we need to fix that. If it can be flummoxed by somebody who like bought something from the Apple store and forgot to turn off airplane mode. Like, I don't think any of us are comfortable with our flight safety being in the hands of someone who can just turn off airplane mode.
Exactly.
So either they've dramatically exaggerated the damage that can be done in that situation, or we need to get better stuff on our airplane so that is not a possibility. Those are the only two options here.
And Travis just coming off the top rope again in the chat. Appreciate you, Travis. He says, I never have any luck getting service while flying, but I always leave my phone on because the FFA.
That's one way to go for sure, Travis. We're just gonna move on. There's a lot of other things going on besides these airplane the hooligans and Dylan Raiola. Obviously, burying the lead a little bit this morning. Nebraska volleyball.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the Raiders for Shane.
I'm almost certain I'm not going to get to that at all.
The most exhilarating.
That's totally on me.
I would say he snuck in a bunch of the highlights into the open. I think he had his fun for the day.
I was just really, really hoping they'd put up 70 so the Broncos wouldn't be the laughing stock of the NFL this year. And the Broncos have kind of turned it around. I do believe the Chargers still have taken the throne of the biggest laughing stock of the NFL. And maybe we'll just leave it at this for the day whenever we talk about Thursday Night Football. A shambolic performance from the Chargers on Thursday Night Football. I'm shocked Brandon Staley even made it to the post-game press conference, but I also look at it with 3 games left. Is there any point to firing him now with your backup quarterback?
It's symbolic.
No, probably not, but the symbolic nature of firing guy after you lose was 63-14 was the final score. Rest in peace to anyone who started
63-21.
63-21, excuse me. Rest in peace to anyone who started the Chargers defense in the first week of your fantasy football playoffs.
I hope
nobody can do that.
I hope I didn't. We're actually going to check real quick just to make sure. I thought I had the Broncos defense, but I just want to make sure here. Okay, I got Cleveland in one. We're going to check the other. This is important because this is maybe more important than Elijah's Elijah's umpiring. Yeah, okay, I'm good. I got Browns and Broncos on my team.
I want to buy in fantasy this week, but not the good buy. It's the buy in the toilet bowl.
Oh, that's
that was
not
so
great.
bad. And if I lose it all, I have to get an L tattooed somewhere on me. So I'm not looking forward to that.
So I asked.
It wasn't pretty.
By the way, Nebraska volleyball playing for national championship on Sunday. We will get more to that. We're not ignoring it. I promise. I asked this of Connor Havlick was in your chair last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't know, whatever. I asked him, would he rather allow me to choose the tattoo, but you get to choose where it is on your body, or it is a tramp stamp, but you get to choose what the tattoo is?
Stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, so basically you either get
I really got to be
choose
careful on what I say about that.
the
So
design or the location. That's it. And in exchange, because I'm not a horrible person. Last week I think the exchange was I give you 8 wins for the season. This week the exchange is Dylan Raiola signs on the dotted line, and we get a decent transfer wide receiver.
You can pick the tattoo design. I'll pick the location.
Okay, what location are you choosing?
Somewhere I can hide easily, probably like my ass or something. Somewhere I can hide easily.
I want to get you. Are you like we watch The Office?
Yeah.
I'm going to get you a Nard dog tattoo. Just right.
The thing is, no one's going to see. If anyone does see that, they are close enough to me that they'll probably appreciate the story and think it's funny. They'll understand that me as a person will be able to find a sense of humor in this, and then hopefully you'd be able to find the humor in this situation. So I'm going to go with you pick the design, I pick the location. I can hide it.
That's fair. That's fair. I appreciate that. Anyway, back to Nebraska volleyball. They swept through Pittsburgh in dominating fashion last night. And then after that match, Texas took out Wisconsin. I know Texas is really good. This is nothing against Texas. Was kind of relieved to see Wisconsin didn't win.
Texas is a powerful player.
Wisconsin feels like I know that Nebraska got them once this year. Wisconsin feels a little bit like a boogeyman for Nebraska. And again, nothing against Texas. I'd rather take my chances with Texas.
I still hate burnt orange.
I mean, me too.
I'm just going to throw that out there. That was what I was thinking about watching. Like, either way, no matter who Nebraska got, Texas or Wisconsin, it is going to be a hell of a matchup on Sunday.
Absolutely.
And Nebraska is going to have their hands full.
Absolutely.
I do see the poetic justice to ending the season in the national championship game, Wisconsin-Nebraska.
Sure.
I think I personally was rooting for Wisconsin. It was either way. It's going to be a hell of a matchup on Sunday. I was not like on the edge of my seat rooting for Wisconsin. It wasn't really going to matter. Nebraska was going to have a difficult test, and they were going to have to go make it through a very difficult team on Sunday, no matter what. That being said, with Nebraska's only loss of the season being to Wisconsin, and the two volleyball powerhouse programs in terms of fan support, in terms of what they've put together the past couple seasons, I think there was poetic justice to getting Nebraska and Wisconsin that final match of the season. You know what? Nebraska's only lost to Wisconsin. Wisconsin got Nebraska once the only team to do that. I think to play for all the marbles, that was the most fitting way this volleyball season could have ended. That being said, I'm really excited for Nebraska and Texas on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of with you in that Nebraska, Texas, I think slight leg up to Nebraska in that, but Texas played really, really well last
Texas
night.
played incredible. I do think, and listen, this is from what other people have told me, because I'm not a volleyball expert. I just watch and enjoy Nebraska being awesome. It sounds like stylistically, Texas is a better matchup for Nebraska. So that's a big part of this. The other thing, I do think there is a mental, even though, again, they beat them once this year. The most recent match was a loss to Wisconsin in terms of this match. Poetically, 100%, it'd be better if Nebraska can avenge that loss, win 2 out of 3 from Wisconsin, win a national title, right?
Like that leave no doubt aspect to the season.
Now if they win, they'll end up being like 34-1. So it's not like there's a ton of doubt, but I do understand it from a storyline standpoint. Nebraska, Wisconsin's probably a little bit more appealing from hey, I just want to make sure they win a national championship this year perspective. I prefer the Texas matchup a little bit more from what I've been told. I
also like the Kaylee Akana storyline with Texas.
Sure.
Of she transferred out. Now she either gets her chance at vengeance against Nebraska. And I know there's still friendships that were made during volleyball. It's not a bad blood relationship by any means between Kaylee Khan and Nebraska or vice versa. I think that's an interesting storyline you can hit on Sunday. Either way, there was going to be great storylines, and either way, it's a team that Nebraska has played plenty with. Nebraska-Texas dating back to the Big 12 days. Nebraska-Wisconsin has been the new rivalry of the Big 10. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exhilarating either way, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's a 2 p.m. On Sunday start. That's 12, the 17th of December there, 12-17 at 2 p.m. Nebraska and Texas for the national championship.
Best thing about it,
what's up, Shane?
Raiders won't be playing at that time.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing about the Broncos. The Broncos have the Saturday night matchup. Who is playing Sunday at noon? Is there any decent matchup that is going to take the headlines?
That's going to be in the way of watching that one at the end.
There is nothing I see that's exhilarating. Buccaneers and Packers maybe has some playoff
Bears,
implications.
Browns, no.
Don't care.
No.
Panthers, Falcons sucks.
Titans, Texans, no.
Titans, Texans is probably the best matchup of the day. I still give the advantage to the Texans. We'll see what Will Levis can do on a slightly shorter week. Chiefs, Patriots is going to be an awful, gross game to watch.
Yeah, there's no good games at noon. So
kind of a terrible NFL Sunday aside from Bills and Cowboys. Ravens, Jaguars, Sunday Night Football should be decent.
Yeah, I'm also Cowboys, Bills is a good one, and Ravens, Jaguars is decent. That's about it. It's kind of a rough slate this weekend, so you have no excuse not to watch Nebraska volleyball play for a national championship. If you want more coverage of volleyball, make sure you hit up the Hurrdat Sports social media channels. Anna Bellinghausen is down there. Jacob Padilla is down there. I believe Kyle Byers is down there with doing videography, photography, all that kind of stuff that he does. Make sure you check that out because we have got you covered for volleyball in Nebraska.
One final thing here before we get out the segment. I know we're up against it. We have an early morning Dylan Raiola tweet.
Uh-oh. What do we have?
He tweeted out the definition of the word purpose.
What's that?
It's just the word purpose. Noun. Living life to the fullest and knowing there is a reason for your journey.
Right there.
Devotion to God's calling and those things that bring your soul joy and peace. Knowing the value of sharing your gifts with others. Purpose.
That doesn't give me any breadcrumbs, I don't think.
You don't? I think he's talking about the purpose
of restoring Nebraska to glory.
The legacy of coming back and leaving your mark at Nebraska. There's no other reason for him to be tweeting something like that on the day he's hopping on a plane and flying to Nebraska.
Probably getting in the plane about now. I mean, unless he might be pulling the Elijah Herbel and tweeting from the air with his airplane mode off.
Something tells me the Raiola family can afford the in-flight Wi-Fi.
That is our opening segment for the day. We will have much more on Nebraska volleyball, on Dylan Raiola, on all sorts of things happening this weekend. Big sports weekend for the University of Nebraska, and big game for Creighton basketball this weekend as well. We'll set up the show, let you know who we're going to be talking to next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
There's the snap. He's going to throw. Lobs it near side, looking for Myers. There's the Toby Myers touchdown.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
There's the snap. He's going to throw. Lobs it near side, looking for Myers. Leaps and grabs. Jacoby Myers, touchdown.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla. That is Elijah Herbel here with me. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and we are getting you ready for a jam-packed weekend of Nebraska sports, both on and off the field/court. We've got a bunch of great guests for you here today. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Damon Benning about a bunch of stuff. Obviously, he's got quite a bit of insight into Nebraska football and everything going on there, but he's also super tuned in to the high school scene, and I mean, he watches everything. He's got a good eye, so we'll talk to him at 8 about just about everything that's going on in the sports world here locally. Up at 9, we will focus in on high school with Mike Sautter, and then 9:45 we'll wrap up the show with former Husker Matt Vrzal. We're also efforting our teammate here, Anna Bellinghausen, who is down in Tampa. We're going to try and join her at some point during the show today. To try and get a little update on the ground from what's going on in Tampa with Nebraska volleyball.
And dare I say, we have some Tampa Bay weather going on here in Omaha.
It might be a little chillier, but it is the precipitation level is I was very surprised when I was letting my dogs out this morning. One of them refuses to go outside in the rain, so he just like walked out and walked right back in. And I was not awake enough yet to realize that it was raining. So I was like, Doug, what are you doing, man? And then I realized it was raining. And I was like, oh, he's not going to go out this morning.
Meanwhile, my roommate's cat was pissed off at me because she's sitting at the door just meowing at me, wanting to go outside. I'm like, trust me, you're not going to like it out there. I know better than you. In just 30 minutes while I'm making my coffee in the morning, just meowing at me, making me want to absolutely go right back to bed and get the hell away from that cat. It was brutal.
My cat also has this thing where he wants to go outside when it is the worst temperatures.
Yeah.
It's like when it was, I don't know, it was a couple years ago when it was like -20, like actual air temp was -20 outside, and he's like pawing at the door and meow. I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like I was like, listen, man, you've got a good life here. I need you to chill a little bit. Like you get wet cat food every night. You're a little chunky. I'm not sure you make it out in the wild anymore. Not exactly in predator shape anymore. Listen, there's a reason we call him Potato.
Yeah, like my roommate's cat, I'm like, I turn on a space heater for you to nap. Like I go through that energy. I make the rest of the house cold because it's too close to the thermostat. Like I do so much for you. And here you want to go outside in the rain? Is your space heater not good enough for you?
It is not good enough. Just it's tough. Cats, man, they're tough.
Cats suck. I love my cat. My roommate's cat, I should say, but man, they're the worst.
I didn't know I was a cat guy, and then we got one, and I was like, oh, kind of like this little fella.
That's true.
We
exactly. That's the thing. Is
Shane
like cats are
it.
so soft and fluffy.
Shane
like,
gets it.
They might be mean.
I would say until they're sharp and mean, and then you're like, God. We
just go back to sports.
No, it's fine. Just talking about cats here on a morning show is not a big deal. Wanted to get back into a little bit of the conversation we were just in. Obviously, reminder: Nebraska Volleyball playing for a national championship this weekend. No big deal, as Doc Sadler would say. So we're definitely excited about that. They'll play Texas.
No big deal.
Thank you. They'll play Texas on Sunday. Dylan Raiola in town this weekend. But as we were talking a little bit, we touched on it a little bit earlier, and we touched on it a lot yesterday with the Kyle McCord leaving situation, right? And so I'm tell me if I'm being an irrational Nebraska fan here, right? But I'm looking at the other options that Kyle McCord has for where he's potentially going to school. And I'm looking at, okay, looks like likely Syracuse, maybe Rutgers, which I think that, part of that's a location thing. I get that. But while he would absolutely have been an upgrade over what was in the room this year, am I crazy to be like, okay, if he was as good as we were hoping he would be at Nebraska, wouldn't there be other interested parties other than Syracuse and Rutgers? Like, am I crazy there?
You're not crazy.
Like, I know there's extenuating circumstances.
I've had the thought, but then I also have to turn around and ask myself, how many teams in the country are in a place where a 1-year rental quarterback is what they need to find success next season?
Fair, but that amount of logic often does not apply to the transfer portal, if we're being honest, right? And maybe it's hey, he wants to go somewhere where he is the guy and doesn't really have to worry about competition, whether it's him or some things we maybe have heard about his dad being a little more hands-on than is probably necessary for somebody of that age. But I don't know. I'm looking around the country and you see, you watch college football on any given Saturday, especially at these Power 5 schools. And you don't look at and maybe he's not interested, but you don't look at Iowa and you're like, they could use a Kyle McCord. I know Cade McNamara is supposed to come back, but Kyle McCord's not better than Cade McNamara.
I think Iowa needs an offensive coordinator first. What direction do they want to go with their offense? That remains a big question. You can go through a list of schools in the country. Even including Nebraska, Syracuse, and Rutgers, and say, why do you need Kyle McCord?
Is Kyle McCord not better than Tyler Van Dyke at Wisconsin?
I think he is.
Would he not be better in that Wisconsin system, kind of the air raid system, not terribly dissimilar from what they run at Ohio State, very similar concepts? You wouldn't take Kyle McCord over Tyler Van Dyke?
I think you also have to think about the ins into a relationship with a guy like Kyle McCord.
I get that. Sure, I do. But it wouldn't be like especially with quarterbacks and teams that need quarterbacks, which is almost everybody most of the time. Now, if you don't want to take a chance on 1-year rental, totally understand that, right? But you're telling me like a Washington who hasn't nailed down a quarterback yet, Michael Penix is leaving, you have to assume they're going to be pretty good again next year, or they think they're going to be pretty good again next year. That offense would seem to fit the type of skill set that Kyle McCord has. Like, why isn't Washington interested? Why, there's a lot of, why isn't, USC interested? What the USC is going to need a quarterback next year. They think they're very active with guys like Will Howard. Is Kyle McCord not a better pure passer than Will Howard? Because I would guess he is. Like, there's something weird going on here with the Kyle McCord situation.
Well, to me, it comes down to, as I kind of said, the 1-year rental factor, the fact that Kyle McCord, by all accounts, is going to need a starting job wherever he goes.
Sure.
So I think you have to look from Kyle McCord's point of view too, and look what other schools have. You have to be going to a spot where you have a pretty good idea that there's not going to be that much competition. You want to be on the field, but at the same time, you don't want to end up at FAU, and that's no slight against Casey Thompson. But I think Kyle McCord thinks he's better than that. So then it kind of narrows down the options where you can go. A spot where you're almost all but guaranteed the starting job, a spot that needs a 1-year rental, a spot that feels that one quarterback for 1 year, such as Kyle McCord, can put them over the top. You're really narrowing down the options of schools that fit that bill.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you have a point.
I look at all the teams that are interested and active in the portal for quarterbacks, and all the teams that are losing a starter at quarterback, all the teams that think they're going to be good next year, and that number is bigger than it used to be because you only have to get to 12 to make the playoff next year, right? So a quarterback like Iowa was 10-3 this year. You're telling me a real quarterback, assuming they get an offensive coordinator hire, right? But you're telling me a real quarterback can't get them from 17 to 12 next year? Because I think it could. You're telling me Oregon State, they're losing Jonathan Smith and everybody else, but like they couldn't use a quarterback with DJU leaving and Andre Childs leaving. Like, you're telling me none of these teams out there better than Syracuse and Rutgers need a quarterback next year?
There's a couple schools I think of, and maybe they'll go elsewhere in the portal that I think of like, man, you're not going to have to record. UCLA is one of them.
Sure.
Moving into the Big Ten, you could use a quarterback with Big Ten experience.
Absolutely.
Miami, you've lost Tyler Van Dyke. It sounds like they've had Will Howard on campus, but they haven't been able to close the deal there. You're not going to at least talk to Kyle McCord, go kick the tires there. Kansas State.
Losing Will Howard.
Where are you going to go at quarterback next season?
Yeah, Kansas State expects to be good and competitive every year. I mean, there's
Arkansas losing. Did what's his name ever officially enter the portal?
Is it KJ? Is that Jefferson? Is that
KJ Jefferson? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he officially did or not, but that's a fair point.
For a long time, he's going to be.
You've got some.
Or Arkansas landed Talon Green from Boise State in the portal. I missed that news.
Yeah, like, is Kyle McCord not better than Talon Green from Boise State? Like, this is what I'm talking about here. Like,
Talon Green's not a 1-year guy.
He's not, which is fair. Like, that's part of the equation. I don't know. I'm looking around. I go, listen, if Syracuse and Rutgers are the other suitors here, like, I'm having some questions about, and maybe it's the familial situation. Who knows? Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 1. Continue to talk about big weekend in Nebraska sports, and we will get to Damon Benning at the top of the next hour here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Elijah Herbel here with me. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we are talking to you about, we're trying to decipher these messages from Dylan Raiola on Twitter. We're trying to figure out Nebraska's going to win a national championship in volleyball on Sunday. Man, we have a lot going on here. We're trying to figure out why nobody wants to recruit Kyle McCord.
There's always a lot going on in Nebraska media, right?
I think so, yeah.
Even whenever there's slow days,
yeah,
there's always storylines. That's what I love about this job. Is like you even get to like mid-July, you go, what are we going to talk about today? And something always comes up. The days where you're like, man, there's just nothing to talk about. You know that something's going to pop up on Twitter, and you'll go, okay, never mind. Guess we got something to talk about.
You mean like Monday?
That's what I love about this place. And even if there's nothing to talk about, some fan out there somewhere is going to concoct some storyline. And I'm going to go,
yeah.
You know what? They got a point. Or I'm going to say they're crazy. Either way, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I love this place.
It's terrific. You love the passion. You love, and I can't, separate myself from that. Born and raised here. I am, maybe a little bit more rational than some, but I'm definitely unhinged at my own moments as well. If you ever follow me on Twitter during a Nebraska football game, that's quite the roller coaster ride. A roller coaster ride that we've experienced with Dylan Raiola as well. I was thinking last night, And I'm a big movie nerd. Like I watch a lot of movies. I enjoy going to movies. It's a big thing for me. And so a lot of times I'll kind of compare things that are happening in real life to movies or vice versa or whatever. And so I'm sitting there last night as I'm kind of putting the show together, and I let my mind wander a little bit after Nebraska clinches a spot in the national title match, for volleyball. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what type of movie are we watching here with the Dylan Raiola saga as it plays out, right? Because there's a lot of different places my brain went. And first and foremost, I was like, okay, Monday felt like The Sixth Sense, right? This crazy twist ending that nobody saw coming. And I don't know if you remember, have you seen The Sixth Sense?
I have. Yeah.
Okay. The first time you watched it, you're young enough that you may have known what happened before you watched it. So that's not okay. That's good. The first time you watch it, you're kind of sitting there and you're just like, wait, where did that come from? What just happened?
Way to go. No spoilers, by the way.
Thank you. I'm trying. It's been like almost 25 years. So like,
I think you can spoil it. I think you'll be okay.
I feel like, I know Lonely Island spoiled it in one of their songs. So probably okay to spoil it at this point.
That's a throwback to Lonely Island.
Listen, those songs are bangers, man. Like they're funny. They get in my head. Like they are uncanny, like how catchy they are.
Like being on a boat.
Yeah, like on a boat, man. Yeah, I think the one that I'm referring to is less radio/family appropriate than the on a boat one.
Cut a hole in the box.
Nope, not that one.
See,
that one.
I reference that one every single Christmas. Oh, you don't know what to get for your mom? Step one.
No,
cut a hole in the box.
not for mom.
That's wrong.
But no, it's. I'm the way that I felt Monday evening when the first text came in or the first tweet came in or whatever was kind of the same thing I felt when I saw the spoiler or the surprise and twist of Sixth Sense came in. It was confused, a little bewildered, kind of excited, just this mix of emotions. And that's one of the closest things that I could compare it to when the tweets and text started rolling in Monday evening. I was first and foremost, like the first thing I got was just somebody texting me, Dylan Raiola, !, question mark, !, question mark, ! And I'm like, what? Like, what's happening here? Like, I have no idea what's going on here. And then I start digging and I'm like, oh no. That's kind of the montage scene where they look back at the rest of the movie with the new information from Sixth Sense in mind. And you're like, oh, Bruce Willis was a ghost the whole time. Yeah. Like as I'm digging on Monday, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. And so I don't know if that's a weird place to go with this, that Dylan Raiola is like, we're watching the Sixth Sense here, but that's what Monday felt like.
See, I love Thomas. Thomas chimes in here and he says, it's The Notebook. Honestly,
what do you want?
Surprisingly good answer there.
Dylan, what do you want?
It wasn't the first place. First place my mind went was Shutter Island.
Okay.
Because it's similar with that twist at the end where the whole movie,
yes,
you think you know.
And then
you think you know what's going on. You think you know how it's going to end. And then right at the end, that twist comes.
Yeah.
And you go, how did I not see this coming?
Yeah. So I saw that one coming a little bit more.
Did you?
A little.
I'm a movie idiot.
Yeah,
I sit there and I'm just eating my popcorn. I munch away on the popcorn.
It's so much better to be a movie idiot. Like it is. It's more fun because you're like you're not like processing it the whole time. You're just kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. This is great. And I can do that sometimes, but if it gets like, some of those movies, whether it's Shutter Island or like any of the Christopher Nolan movies, like I'm trying to figure it out the whole time, and it's not as good of an experience usually.
See, and then I run into those movies where it does not pay to be a movie idiot because I get to the end and I go, I don't know what the hell I just Lighthouse.
Yeah. Oh, to be fair, I don't think anybody knows what they watched when they watched.
Okay, good. I thought maybe I was just the idiot. Like I watched that movie and I went, I think maybe if I was smarter about watching movies, I'd understand this one.
Probably not. It's one of those movies, to my understanding. I haven't seen it because it seems like a real tough hang.
Yeah.
It is. It's one of those movies that feels like they made it to show how like artistic they are and like to show like, hey, isn't it cool that we can shoot like it's a very movie maker's movie and not so much a general public movie, which like it's fine.
It's a very fancy way of saying it sucks.
Well,
it's not a good movie.
I'm actually okay with like I think there's room for a lot of types of different movies, and some people just want to like experiment with certain things as like an artistic expression on film, and like that's great. I'm not going to watch that. Like that's a pass for me.
Like, just don't advertise it, please.
but that's that's for other people. That's great. It's like music. Like not everybody appreciates the greatness that is Creed. And we do,
fair.
So it's not for everyone.
Creed's more for the general public.
It is,
than
yeah. No, but like think of I don't know what's a weird bit like Neutral Milk Hotel. Like that's a real band. I think.
But with arms wide open.
With arms wide open. You have like real deep cut, like experimental music or just like independent music and stuff like that. It's not for everybody. I'm over here. I'm just like I like Creed and Coldplay, guys. I don't know what to tell you. So
basic as they come.
So did we get any explanation on the Notebook or what do we get here? Just the Notebook from all right.
I think he's just specifically referring to that scene in the rain.
Yeah,
at the end. Yeah,
that's fair. I also thought of speaking of Christopher Nolan movies. I also thought
Batman.
I didn't, although maybe he is a superhero. We don't know. I thought Inception, because that's where we're at kind of right now. Monday, we were Sixth Sense. Right now, we're in Inception, where the very end of the movie, he spins the totem, and we think we know what happens. We think we know what's going to happen. We don't totally know what happens, right? You finish the end of that movie, and you're like, I think I know how this is going to go. I don't actually know how this is going to go. That's where we are today. We think we know where this is going to go with Dylan Raiola. He has not committed. He has not signed on the dotted line. We don't actually know where it's going to go yet.
So the top is still currently spinning?
Yes.
Okay.
We are currently in top spinning mode. We can't tell if it's teetering or not. We can't tell if it's going to fall over. We think it is. We're not totally sure. That's where we're at with Dylan Raiola today, we're in Inception mode today.
That's fair.
I think so.
That's fair. I think, though, with him tweeting out the purpose thing, that might be the first wobble.
Yeah, that's where that's what I mean. Like, we think we see the wobble. We're trying to talk ourselves into like, yep, it's wobbling. It's going to fall. We're okay. And then it cuts to black.
And Thomas has now chimed in and explained his Notebook take. She goes off with the rich guy who she thinks will give her a good life, but she comes back to where her heart is.
Comes back for love. What a perfect analogy, Thomas.
How
well
perfect
done.
is it on a rainy day in Omaha? Thomas might have nailed it. Thomas, you might be taking my job.
Thomas, that's a terrific one. So what I'm hoping for, so I did Monday, I did today. I'm hoping by Sunday, we're at the Matrix, right? Where Neo is the one. We thought it was dead. Came back to life at the end of the movie to vanquish the machines and Agent Smith and everything like that. I'm hoping by Sunday we're at Matrix mode. The full resurrection has happened, and we've got Dylan Raiola committed. There's a beautiful tweet and a graphic and a movie and whatever else and a full-length feature film that to announce his commitment to Nebraska. I'm hoping on Sunday we're in Matrix mode.
Is it Full Metal Jacket? Where I just hope we don't get a Gomer Pyle moment.
Yeah, no, that would be terrible. We don't want that at all.
No.
We do not want that. That would be, I think, the worst case scenario. I think.
Yeah. Murder usually is.
Yeah, usually mass murder is the last thing you want here. So, yeah, disastrous ending. I don't think we want that.
That's more what I meant by that. But
yes,
but
yeah.
Murder is
often
if
the
this
worst.
Somehow ends in murder.
I don't know how that's
gonna make a hell of a Netflix movie or documentary someday.
Yeah, you thought the Manti Te'o one was crazy. The disastrous ending is hopefully not what we're going for here. But that's where we're at. Monday we were Sixth Sense. Today we're Inception. Will we be Matrix by next Monday? By Sunday? Monday? Tomorrow? Today?
Tonight?
We don't know. We'll just figure out what Dylan Raiola's purpose here is in Lincoln this weekend. Coming up next, our purpose is to talk to our guy Damon Benning about all things going on. Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, high school hoops, college hoops. We will cover it all with our guy DB here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet stage. Want to remind you, using your seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries, but only if it is properly worn. Make sure it clicks. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy, Old DB, Damon Benning. What's going on, buddy?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Oh, we are living the dream over here, just having a good time, getting to know Elijah, and trying to see if we like each other. Just
trying to make it through a slow week here. I tell you what.
Elijah, I kind of like your style. Plus, in our household, we buy Herbal Essence shampoo, so like you're scoring like double bonus points. We get the botanical blend, man, so it's all good.
I'm glad you get it. And I'm glad you, even despite the fact that it's Herbal Essences, I screwed myself up in like 6th grade when I made that my Twitter handle. Everyone from like that point on, it's like, Elijah, Herbal is your name. And I totally have disrespected my ancestors. I've done it wrong the entire time. Everyone mispronounced my name, and I can't even be mad about it because it's my own fault.
DB, I'm not lying to you. I had like a 30-minute conversation with Gorman before Elijah came in yesterday. I was like, is it Herbal or Herbal? And he's like, honestly, I don't know.
And in CG, he's just gonna go with whatever, man. So it's like he's so cool. It's like, yeah, whatever he likes. You like it, I love it. Potato. For years, Shane called you Robbie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And his last name is butchered too. He's not really a Schillerberg, so you guys all got something in common.
Well, come on, Shane.
That's true. Get this though. For my first 6 months working with Schmitty, he just is Elijah Herbal. And I was like, you know what? Not a fight worth fighting. And who was it? Somebody called in one day to complain about it. I think it was Dan. Dan works for my dad. He called in one day to say you're mispronouncing his name, and Schmitty profusely apologized to me on the air. And I'm like, legitimately, it's okay. I've made my own bed. If I know you're talking to me, call me whatever the hell you want. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not the type of guy to be offended by that.
I've coached kids who I've called mispronounced their name for years. They never said anything just because they liked the way whatever I was saying sounded. So it's like at some point you reach a point where you just don't want to correct people because it's too late in the game.
Exactly.
TV, we've got a lot going on here. I want to start with Nebraska football with you because we could talk about nonsense all day. So I gotta stick to my notes here. I mapped it out because I was like, man, if I'm not careful here, we're just going to go through a half hour and not actually talk about anything.
Talk about shampoo.
So check out shampoo and mispronounced names. And that's our time with Damon Benning. So wanted to talk about the return of a couple key guys for Nebraska that kind of got lost in the wash this week because of everything else going on. Isaac Gifford and John Bullock, especially on that defense. How important in your mind is their return to Tony White's defense, continuing what we saw last year?
Well, I think it's huge. It not only provides leadership, but continued depth because they've got a couple of young guys, that they like, that they're going to continue to bring up slowly, developmentally. And you have a couple of guys from a leadership standpoint that practice a certain way, that hit guys a certain way, that know the standard, right? We joke all the time about my guy Tomlin, the standard is the standard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring two guys like that lay it on the line Monday through Friday constantly, those guys are good tone setters, and you need those. And then when you add in the fact they're two of the top 5-6 leading tacklers, one's the top tackler, then that typically never hurts. And it's amazing, right? Right before our very eyes, Nebraska's turned into a place where people don't really want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ty Robinson and you got Gifford and you've got Bullock, and these guys they don't want to go anywhere. And I think Nebraska is okay with that because we talked months and months and months ago when Trev first came on. I always thought that his plan, the great equalizer to the transfer portal, was to build Nebraska in such a way where it was too good to leave, right? We heard for years all the former players that end up having residence in Omaha and Lincoln or someplace in Nebraska, and they're not from Nebraska, and how the stadium was just the place to be. And I think he's built his staff like that. He's diversified the staff, the strength and conditioning staff, the training table. Coach Rule has diversified his staff. They built the locker room a certain way. The great equalizer to what's going on with movement and freedom of movement is to have it be a place where you just don't want to leave. So I think they've got that pretty much down pat.
It's Damon Benning with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. And Damon, one of the things I brought up yesterday on the afternoon show, Hail Varsity Radio, was that with 8 starters returning and with the Bullock news, it almost feels like 9 starters returning for that defense because of how well he played whenever he was on the field last year. Really felt like another starter, despite the fact that he wasn't technically atop the depth chart. Is that defense with those 8, 9 guys returning, whatever you want to call it, it really raises lowers the floor in terms of what you need from improvement from the offense. Because you feel like 24 points a game, that's another 7 points per game from the offense. That feels like a place where you're going to be in a position to win a lot of football games next season if you can get that 24 mark from your offense. And I don't want to go to specific names with the rumor mill churning this week and whoever's in town this week, unless you want to go there. But I want to get your thoughts on that in terms of improvement on the offense. It's not much needed.
I just talked to him, so I'm pretty sure they're on their way to Lincoln. But I think with this defense, you on paper it looks fantastic, but I tell you, it's dangerous to kind of think, all right, if we just do this, then this, because I think, and it's not a you thing. Listen, everybody does it. I know when SC was courting Coach White, it was, if you just do this, then we'll do this. We heard Coach Frost say, if the defense does do this, then we just need. When you start getting into conditions of minimizing performance, you're in dangerous ground. So while on one hand, I get what you're saying, right? If you can just have some sort of a semblance of the 2023 defense, not as much pressure on the offense, but the defense is saying to themselves 2 things. Number one, listen, we got to get better. Right? We at no point when we had a chance to close the game out defensively did we get the job done. We need to be better. We need to be better on 3rd down. We need to be better at taking the ball away. We need to be better with our situational penalties, right? You can't give up a pass interference when you're in cover 3, right? So things like that, they're going to be motivated by. The offense is thinking, hey, we got to hold up our end of the deal. We don't want to go through another year where people look at us as like, lesser than. So I get it on paper, but I'm telling you, the functionality of it in the locker room, I think everybody is dialed in, and they got started right away. With guys not wanting to go home and stand around the weight room. This team is hungry. They're looking for way more in 2024. That's for sure.
DB, I am not going to be as tactful as Elijah, and I'm going to ask you kind of whatever I want. And if you don't want to answer, just tell me.
I'm used to it.
I was going to say, you know me. I'm not going to beat around the bush here.
I'm 100% used to it.
So, obviously, the Dylan Raiola story is the biggest thing going on this week. At what point, without saying anything you don't feel like saying, at what point did you start to think, oh, this actually might be a thing?
Sunday morning.
Okay, so about 24 hours before the rest of us.
Yeah, Sunday morning. Had some conversations with Dom and told him that, hey, would love to, let's figure it out, because he and I have been. I just always would pick his brain, the same as like Danny Noonan or any of these other guys that had sons that were going through the recruiting process, right? Mm-hmm. I always had my notebook and my pen and paper out. And so Dom and I had a really good chance to reestablish kind of our relationship over this whole recruiting thing. So when his name popped up on Sunday, it seemed fairly innocuous until after about the 3rd or 4th question. So then I kind of knew. I was like, this is interesting. You kind of want to know about the state of the program, how Caleb feels, how I feel, am I comfortable, the general direction. I mean, he was very specific. Mm-hmm. And so I told him, we had a football banquet later on that day, and I would get back to him. And then the text started again, during the banquet. And I knew by then that he wasn't just fact finding and trying to get a State of the Union. He was pretty serious. So it's always exciting when things like that have the opportunity to present themselves. And I just tell people with recruiting, it's fluid. You never know until you know. There'll be surprises Wednesday morning that we weren't counting on. So in the grand scheme of things, this is plenty of time for guys to change their mind and make up their mind for some. And I think with him, there's a couple of misnomers out there, and he can speak to those, and the family can speak to those if they want to. But I'll tell you one thing, this has a lot more to do about trust than it does anything fiscally related, because I think the fiscal part of what was going on was a little overstated and a little overblown. It had grown legs during the recruiting process. And yeah, does everybody want to set themselves up in a situation where it's advantageous from a monetary standpoint? Absolutely. We all want that, right? So, but I think that was very, very much secondary, even tertiary down the road in terms of how this thing evolved. I think at the end of the day, it's what he and I talked about, and so I know this to be true. At the end of the day, when your family is involved and they have to be around people that aren't you want to put them in the best situation as possible. It's like coaching. Coaches don't play the best players. They play the players they trust. Parents don't send their kids to the best people. They send their kids to the people that they trust. So I think with this staff and Coach Rule and kind of what they're about from an athletic department standpoint, this one's all about trust. And I think that was the number one thing.
So DB, I wanted to ask you from a football standpoint, right? Because you were there when probably the next most touted quarterback was brought to Nebraska in Tommy Frazier. He was a nationally recruited type guy. You could throw Eric Crouch in that conversation as well as a parade All-American. But those are kind of those are sort of the only two other guys you can look at in Nebraska history and be like, hey, those are the sort of guys on the level of recruitment that Dylan Raiola's at. How much of an impact does a guy like that at the most important position have on an overall team? I know circumstances were different back in 92 when T. Frazier took over, but like how big of an impact can that realistically have? Because I know as fans, we get really big ideas in our heads and stuff like that, but from being in that situation, what can that mean for a team?
The number one thing is, I'll go back to the trust word, because the talent is the talent. So I won't talk about that. Great deep ball, good size, moves well enough around the pocket to give you a little bit of duality, although he's definitely a pass-first guy. He's not going to be a statue back there. I think his fitness will continue to improve. So I don't worry about the talent standpoint. But with the two guys that you mentioned, with T. Frazier and EC, mental toughness is the thing. Being a gamer, situationally, how am I when it doesn't look good? We need some leadership. We've got to make a play, because for all the revisionist history about whether EC went home or quit or didn't quit or how the whole Newcomb thing shook out. What I do know about his competitive nature and his psyche is when it mattered most was when he played his best football. And that's what a transcendent talent can do. It's not so much about the physical attributes. It's about if there's something on the line and we've got to have it, can I trust that guy? That was definitely T. Frazier, and that was definitely EC. They played with such mental toughness, almost unflappable, if you will. And I know some people might say, it's blasphemy to put those two guys in the same sentence, but they have some of the same characteristics. When it's nut-cutting time, you want those guys to be the decision makers and have the ball, right? And you're talking to a guy that coaches a guy that when it's nut-cutting time,
you want Anthony Rizak to have the ball.
I want him to have the ball. I want him to be the guy to make decisions because he's going to figure it out. So if Dylan is there mentally with some fortitude and toughness, his talent can take that offense to different levels, because I think it will be more about who this offense wanted to be a year ago when this thing first started versus who they had to be as the season progressed. And remember, we joked, and now it's come full circle. Remember, Dom and Dylan were guys that studied that South Carolina offense through inside and out. The same guys that had questions when we were at practice in the spring about wildcat situations and when you take quarterbacks out and when you don't take quarterbacks out. And I joked, I was like, that let me know that they were all inside of watching film because you don't get those little nuances on when quarterbacks run the ball, why they felt like they had to use the wildcat, what took the offense, 8 or 9 games to come around. Like, you don't do that kind of due diligence unless you're interested in it. So what this offense wants to do won't be any surprise to Dylan, that's for sure.
It's Damon Benning with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. And Damon, Dylan Raiola tweeted something out, and I want to get your opinion on this as a former athlete yourself, as a leader of young men, as a high school coach, and as a father of a high-level athlete who's going off to college and kind of forging his own way. Dylan tweeted out the word purpose and the definition of the word purpose, the first line of which is living life to the fullest and knowing there is a reason for your journey. With your life experiences, and whenever you look at a guy like Dylan, what does that mean to you? And I think we can all read in between the lines and assume he is talking about Nebraska, but I specifically want to get your thoughts on purpose and that purpose of being a high-level athlete at a place like Nebraska, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's fairly deep, so I'll try to keep it simple. For him, I think in his personality, men typically have two things that drive them: a need to conquer and a need to be validated. I think that's, generally speaking, that's our temperament by nature. And it's heightened when you get to alpha competitors, a need to conquer. Like, what's my goal? What can I go out and attack today? And then the need to be validated, right? Men aren't so much worried about, and this is generally speaking, men so much aren't worried about as being loved as much as they do about being respected. And so knowing his personality, when he talks about purpose and where he could potentially have the opportunity to further his career, why is it about the University of Nebraska? Because he may be saying, this was what I was destined to do all along. Could I function and play in a stadium with my last name on the building? Is this my destiny? Is this can I conquer this? Is this the next phase in life for me to attack? And will it validate my hard work and how much that I've tried to put, and my family's helped put me in positions to be successful? It's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think it encompasses what his personality is and kind of who he is as a competitor. Because I think there's lots of speculating that's going on, the number of high schools, or the moving versus not moving, or the last minute indecision. And I'll simply say this, and I think there's lots of people out there hopefully listening that can speak to this, whether you're in relationships or it's your family or it's competitive, the heart wants what the heart wants. And at the end of the day, when you check that guy or gal in the mirror, how settled are you internally? And if you're unsettled, we have lots of vices that we sometimes can turn to, or lots of distractions. But when you are settled and you're in your sweet spot, your ability to function at a high level is, you can't bottle it. And so if deep down in the back of his mind, he felt like, man, early on, and I'm speaking from experience with my own son, right? Like, early on, yeah, it's cool. It's my dad's alma mater. I love Nebraska. I'm getting a lot of love. But is this for me? Is this my deal? And to take a step back and to go other places, and then to see how they treat, like, let's say your family members, right? Let's say, that the Raiola extension, Donnie, kind of flew under the radar. And I told people the two are connected, but they're not connected. Because what the contract extension showed is that Coach Rule was exactly who he said he was. He was going to treat Donnie and operate independently of whether Dylan was on campus or not. It didn't matter. His work was going to be his work. And it's easy to roll your eyes, especially as a brother. Think about this from a brother standpoint. Oh, hey, you know what? We'll take care of him regardless. It doesn't matter what his nephew does. I know the same last name. It looks like I retained him for recruiting purposes. But guess what? He's out of the fray. He's out of the fold. And I'm going to extend him because I think our offensive line's improved and I believed in him from the get-go. That's going to get your attention. So when you start talking about trust and who can I ride with in crunch time and who can handle the criticism and not always do what's popular or well-received, I want to ride with that guy. And I think that indirectly has a little bit to do with it, right? He is exactly who he told us he was going to be, flaws and all.
Damon, that was fantastic. That was good stuff there. I want to get your thoughts here before we get out. We're kind of up against it. You said a little bit earlier something about surprises on Wednesday, surprises on signing day. Were you speaking about Nebraska or were you speaking just broadly there?
I just generally speaking.
Sure.
I'm just going with like wrong averages, right? I mean, there's always something crazy that happens on signing day, whether it's moms not wanting to sign letters of intent, kids last minute flipping. Like, believe me, there's a lot of due diligence. If I told you all the schools that snooped around and came back to visit and made personal, in-person visits, even after folks say that they're going to another school, listen, football, for whatever the reason, isn't like basketball or volleyball, right? It's like when those high-level folks commit, it's almost like other schools leave them alone. In football, that's not the case. So as long as that continues to not be the case, you can always have surprises on Wednesday.
All right, DB, real quick, I wanted to ask you about Creighton. You've got about a minute here. What did you see against UNLV on Wednesday that maybe concerns you moving forward for Creighton basketball?
So there's two things. Number one, I think you've got to figure out a way to be more efficient on offense when you're not getting good shots. And I'm not talking about shot charts and distribution. I'm talking about, because if you just look at hard data and you're like, okay, we weren't shooting it well from behind the arc. Well, when were those shots coming, right? Where were they in the sequence of our offense? Were they off a pass? Was it off a set piece? Was it ISO and we're up against the clock? Like, they have to understand that, because for Kalkbrenner to get 13 field goal attempts and them still not shoot it well, that's a little bit of a concern. But the main thing is they got to get better defensively. They let UNLV's dudes be dudes, and that's a poor lack of execution and attention to detail. So I think they've got to find a way to get better stops defensively. That's twice now with the Mountain West in terms of allowing their offense to just do what they want to do.
That's Damon Benning, Old DB. We appreciate you as always. Always good to talk to you, friend.
Hey, whenever you name me.
Absolutely. That's our guy, DB. Coming up next, he said something about conquering and validating that I want to get to here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Ravi Lulla, Elijah Herbel here with you. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The YouTube stream popping off as always. Appreciate all our friends chiming in on the YouTube stream. You can be a part of the show on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline as well. 888-638-4876. Really good stuff there with Damon Benning in the last segment.
By the way,
what's up?
Raiders had, 6 touchdowns by halftime last night?
Nobody cares.
I'm wearing my Broncos colors in here, Shane. I thought you might appreciate that. It's an Orange Friday, even though it's blue.
I mean, it's just, nobody cares about the Raiders. Like, let's just.
I was really conflicted last night, sort of paying attention to that game. Obviously, I was watching volleyball, and then I went and got a lift in, but I was paying attention. Conflicted as an AFC West guy because I will never root for any other AFC West team. Sure. Right now, the Chiefs are at the top of my you-know-what list.
Yeah.
Chiefs are at the top. The Raiders are always up there. The Chargers, you just kind of feel bad for most of the time.
A lot of times I just kind of forget they exist.
I don't forget they exist, but they're never the main concern.
Like, as someone who is not a fan of an AFC West team, it's really easy to forget the Chargers exist.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like
That's
if
fair.
they weren't
especially since they moved
yes,
to LA.
Absolutely. Like if you
Awful
weren't
move.
rooting against them in division, you would forget they exist a lot. I forget the Cardinals exist half the time, and they play in the division I root for with the 49ers. Like, you probably forget the Cardinals exist half the time. Like, that's just kind of how the Chargers are.
But the big problem with the Chargers right now is that they moved from being the big dog in their city, San Diego, which it wasn't much of a big dog. Like, it's still San Diego, but now you're the little brother in your own city.
Yeah.
Like what a terrible, terrible move that was on their part.
And
but like,
also, no one, I mean, listen, I know they wanted football in LA. If you're not good in LA, people don't care about you so fast.
Oh, yeah.
It is a Lakers town through and through. And if you're not good and you're not the Lakers, nobody cares.
Exactly.
Like, they get out of there real fast.
Even if you're the Lakers and you're not good.
Yeah, it's
still like you're going to struggle to pull in ratings.
But the Lakers are about the only team in LA that can get any kind of interest without being good. And it's usually because they have stars, right? They were bad for a while. They still had Kobe. They struggle a little bit. They still have LeBron. Like, the Lakers are the only team in that town that can survive being mediocre.
Mm.
The Chargers, I don't know how Brandon Staley survived being mediocre so far. Like, how does that dude have a job this morning?
Well, so one of the things that my roommate asked me when I got home last night, and shout out to Darren for asking me this question, because it brings me to this point. He asked me, did you enjoy watching the Chargers downfall tonight? And I was like, honestly, not really. Their downfall has been 4 decades.
Yeah, I mean, like what?
Like, you had 1 or 2 years with Phillip Rivers where you were somewhat respectable.
Hey, don't you forget about Stan Humphrey, all right?
Who?
He was the.
How can I forget about him if I didn't know who the hell that was?
I believe he was the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. With
what year was that?
90. You weren't born. It was 95, 94 season, 95 Super Bowl.
I was not born.
It was Stan Humphrey, I believe, was the quarterback. Natron Means was the running back. And who was the – I'm trying to think of the coach's name. I believe he coached at Navy at one point. Hold on, I got to look this up. I'm sorry. It's going to bother me.
So you do that. But, like, he asked me, were you enjoying it? Not really. Like, the Raiders, I would have loved seeing them get 70 hung on them.
Bobby Ross.
I actually know that name. That was the first name you said where I go, oh, yeah, I know that name.
The NFL is better if the Raiders are better.
That's not true. Nobody cares.
It is that way because you always got to have a villain out there, somebody to root against.
That's what the Cowboys are.
And that's the other team. There's 2 teams. It's the NFC team, and the Raiders are the AFC team like that. I mean, you could throw the Patriots in there. People like to root against them, but, I mean, that's the 3 right there.
The NFL does need a villain, but I wouldn't say the NFL is better when the Raiders are good. I'd say prison is more exciting when the Raiders are good. I had to throw that in. I'm sorry, Shane.
Bobby Ross, coach for Army.
Take your ass there.
Shane's got 1 middle finger raised at me right now.
Bobby Ross, coach for Army, not Navy. That's my bad. I thought it was a service academy. Anyway, enough about the 94 Chargers. But that's it. Like, there's no downfall for the Chargers because they've never been up. Like, you have to be up to fall down, right? It's a Obi-Wan Kenobi high ground situation here.
But like, and the thing is like, whenever the Browns have been down on their luck for so long, you feel a little bit bad for them because they do have passionate fans. They have fans that show up in those stupid dog baths every single week. The Chargers don't have passionate fans. There's no one to feel bad for. It's just like, I feel bad for the players a little bit, but not really. They're making millions of dollars.
Yeah, I don't really feel bad
for the players. There's not any real fans except that one fake fan that the NFL bought and got on TV a couple weeks ago. Like,
is that why you guys like being up there on stage? So you have the high ground above me?
It's true. Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you try and flip up, you're like Anakin. We're cutting all your limbs off with our lightsabers.
Fair enough.
I wanted to get to something that DB was talking about with his kind of talking about Dylan Raiola and something that he thinks motivates not just Dylan, but a lot of guys in general, is this conquer and validation dynamic that he was getting into, which we might have to carry this into the next segment as well. But the thing that I thought was really interesting as he's talking about that, first of all, it was a terrific answer. And the thing that really got to me was, well, 2 things. First of all, yes, I know people are freaked out about the high schools and the multiple commitments and stuff like that. And the way I kind of look at it is, first of all, this happens in basketball all the time and nobody cares. Like, guys go to 3 or 4 high schools and no one cares. It's just a thing that people have accepted and it's not a big deal.
Shout out to Shane really fast. You're putting up absolutely no one cares if the Raiders are good, Shane. You're a bigger man than I would have left that one in the chat.
So first of all, I don't think it's a big deal from that standpoint. Second of all, I kind of look at it as, and I'm a lot older than you. So like I've maybe gone through this a little bit more, but it's kind of like when you're like dating someone and like you'll go on a few dates with somebody and you're like, maybe that doesn't quite feel right. You go on a few dates with somebody else. You're like, that's not really right. And then you find somebody they actually want to be with long-term, whether it's a long-term relationship or marriage or whatever. And you're like, oh, this feels right.
See, I've never even gotten that.
See, I'm on my second marriage. I've dated a lot in between, like whatever. But you kind of go through these and you're like, okay, I like this person, but it doesn't necessarily feel quite right. And I like this person for other reasons, but it doesn't really seem like the right fit. And you can't really put your finger on it, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you find a person that you want to be with long-term, it just kind of clicks together and you're like, oh, that all makes sense now. Right. And you still can't really put your finger on it, but I don't know that because it's it's a huge life decision for these guys. Right. So it's honestly one of the 2 or 3 biggest decisions they'll probably ever make in their life. It's where they go to school to play college football, who they end up marrying, and something else. Right. Like those are generally for an athlete of this caliber, kind of the 3 biggest decisions you're ever going to make. And so I think it's more like dating to try and find somebody you want to spend time with long-term versus it is like you or I switching high schools 4 times because we think the baseball coach has it out for us and he won't put us on varsity and whatever, right? Like they're living in a different world than we are when it comes to athletics. And I think sometimes people have a hard time wrapping their mind around that. So that was the first thing that really stuck out to me. The second thing, and we can carry this on into the next segment too. The second thing that really stuck out to me was that conquer versus validation and which one of those motivates you more and which one is most important to you. Because let's be honest, it's going to be easier to conquer at Georgia. It's going to be easier to conquer and win a national title at Georgia, right? It's all set up for you. It is that's an easier task. So if you're motivated by conquering, then maybe you end up at Georgia. If that's the one that tips a little bit more. If you're motivated by validation, there is not a thing in the world. If you conquer at Nebraska, now you still have to conquer, right? That's still part of the equation. You still have to conquer at Nebraska. But if you conquer at Nebraska, the validation difference between what you would get at Georgia, where they just had a walk-on QB win 2 national titles, by the way, the validation you would get for conquering at Georgia versus the validation you would get for conquering at Nebraska are night and day. We're talking about, oh, hey, here's a nice little reunion 10 years from now. People will applaud for you at Georgia Stadium versus like building a statue. Versus like that's the difference we're talking about here. And I'm maybe being a little hyperbolic with the statue,
I don't think so.
But not by much. Like that is the place, that is the validation that conquering at Nebraska gets you if you're Dylan Raiola. So if you sit there and you go, hey, why doesn't it feel quite right at Georgia? It's because probably somewhere deep down in his soul, he knows if I'm motivated by validation over conquering, I don't get the validation that I need from Georgia.
You want to get to the phone lines here?
Yeah, let's get to Asian Wyatt. Hey, hold on through the break here, bud, on the Chargers. We will get you on the other side here. We'll also pick up the rest of that conversation about conquering versus validation that DB brought up. Really good stuff there. We are going to be back here to wrap up hour number 2 on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities. That's Elijah Herbel. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back with more coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back as we wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla, Elijah Herbel here with me as well. Travis in the YouTube stream says, Ravi, you didn't get divorced. You just hit the transfer portal. Positive spin. I love it, Travis. Good stuff there. It is time for the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. Reminder, Warhorse Sportsbook is the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Whether you're in Lincoln, you can place your bets live at the casino, or here in Omaha, you can place them at Horseman's Park at 6303 Q Street. It is the best place to go for your sports betting in Nebraska. They got straight bets, parlays, live bets, props on nearly every major sporting event. Go check out warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or download the Warhorse Casino app for a full list of details and house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. As we start this sports cleanup, let's hit Asian Wyatt here. His term, not mine. He wants to talk about the Chargers. Wyatt, what's going on, buddy? Wyatt, we there?
Yep.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, are we still talking AFC West?
We can talk about whatever you want. Let's do it.
All right. So, because I'm a Broncos fan also.
Love it.
And
Love
for
it.
a period of time, I had a severe, intense, thousand-son hatred of Phillip Rivers.
Okay.
So, those years, I have an inordinate amount of like old Facebook memory posts of me posting about how much I dislike that guy. It's kind of weird, but when I look back on it, but they exist. And I pinpointed the moment. It was like a game where Jay Cutler was the quarterback, and this was before we kind of knew how dirty Jay Cutler was.
Yep.
But he was talking trash to Jay Cutler after the game, or during like at the final stage. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And then subsequently, we knew how much of a kind of a punk he was. So I just could not stand Philip Rivers, and the Chargers were my number one hated team of the AFC West for those years.
So was it just that he kind of seemed like a jerk bag, or like what was it about Philip Rivers that you hated so much? Just his face? He has kind of a punchable face.
It was definitely, the face was definitely part of the factor. and just like, yeah, just how much trash he talked, and how much he just his attitude and everything like that.
And the thing was at that time, there wasn't really another villain for Broncos fans to look at in the AFC West. To be like,
that was pre-Mahomes.
It was pre-Mahomes. Like the Chiefs sucked, the Raiders sucked. It was like everybody in the AFC West was just kind of all right. And Philip Rivers was kind of like the king, but everyone in the AFC West knew that he wasn't as good to be talking as much trash as it seemed like he was when the TV cameras picking up. I know where you're coming from here.
The second most hated person by the Broncos was Josh McDaniels. So
yeah, that is true.
Wyatt, we appreciate the
Hey,
call,
never
buddy.
forget the first 5 games of the McDaniels era. He beats the Patriots. He's fist bumping on the field, and then how public opinion
Never
swayed.
forget Tebow time. Appreciate the call, Wyatt. That's on the Warhorse Sports Book hotline, 888-638-4876. An update, Anna Bellinghausen will join us from Tampa at 9:30. Give us a little update on the Nebraska volleyball situation as they are playing for a national championship on Sunday. Some of the other things I want.
By the way, that 94, and then I'll get off this, I swear. That 94 Chargers team was forgettable. I mean, they weren't, and that was like sort of just a bad year for football all around, because you knew the 49ers were the team. That was the team that was going to just win it all out. And so the AFC wasn't really that good that entire year. And the Chargers were the cream of the crop, and they weren't even that good.
I mean,
I'm looking up their starters right now, trying to know. I know Junior Seau, and that might be it.
Junior, I mean, listen, you didn't know the great Stan Humphries, which is upsetting. You didn't know Natron Means, who was pretty solid as well.
He ran for 1,300 yards that year.
Natron Means was good. He was a good ball player.
He means business.
Junior Seau obviously was the big guy there. Rodney Harrison was a young player on that team.
Wasn't in the starting lineup.
No, he was special teams, right? I think he was a rookie that year.
It was his rookie season out of Western Illinois.
So, start of a good career there for Rodney Harrison. But yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of teams this is sort of the thing that people don't actually talk about. A lot of teams that lose Super Bowls are very forgettable. Like, and if you go through the list of, because I've done this exercise, if you go through the list of teams that have of quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls versus the list of quarterbacks who have lost Super Bowls, it seems like it's kind of a arbitrary line, but the difference in the lists is extraordinary. I mean, you've got like Stan Humphries, Colin Kaepernick, a bunch of rando dudes on the loser list, and some good guys. Obviously, Brady's on that list. Mahomes is on that list. You've got some really good guys on that list as well.
You're talking the one-off guys that lose?
Yeah, like the Rex Grossmans of the world are on the loser list. And you're like, you look at that list, and it is not an impressive list of quarterbacks. Whereas that one game difference, you look at the list of Super Bowl winners, and you're like, yeah, that tells a pretty good, that probably gives me a pretty accurate picture of who the best quarterbacks in the history of football are, with the exception of a couple guys like a Dan Marino especially. But for the most part, you get a pretty complete picture from the winners list, and the losers list is a weird, like crappy potpourri bag.
Does Brock Purdy not feel like a guy that's going to end up on that losers list?
Oh, he feels like a guy that's going to end up on that winners list.
You think so?
Oh, 100%. Brock Purdy is more, I mean, I'm a 49ers fan, so I am wildly biased here. Brock Purdy gives me like a lot, and not saying he's going to end up with his career. He gives me a lot of early Brady vibes.
Oh,
listen, I'm not talking about.
Oh, that's a take.
Hold on, early Brady vibes. Early Brady was not that good.
That's fair.
Early Brady vibes, like has kind of the confidence, quick decision making, and gets the ball to playmakers not a ton on his shoulders. I'm talking like pre-04 Brady. There's some similar vibes there, and not just the late draft position, but that is a factor. This is I'm not talking about like 04 and beyond Brady. I'm not predicting that trajectory for Brock Purdy. But early Brady is not that different from what we're seeing with Brock Purdy.
This is
that's an important distinction.
An aside,
early Brady.
An aside on Brock Purdy here is
that he's going to be the GOAT. Yeah, I know.
I always think back. No, I've tweeted about this before. I had a course back in college. It was U.S. military history, 1776 to 1917. And I took the 1917 up until modern day as well. I was a history buff. I should have been a history major. I was like something stupid, like 15 credits and like the capstone away. Anyway, should have done it. But I sat behind this guy. And like in a college course, you usually end up sitting sort of in the same spot every single time. And I sat behind this guy that was always texting in a group chat on his laptop. And I'm not like, I'm a lucky Lou. Okay. Like, yeah. I'm gonna see what you're doing. And
yeah, the term for that is creeper, Elijah. That's fine. Go ahead.
But he was always texting in this group chat that the group chat was titled "Brock Purdy is not an NFL quarterback." And every single time it gave me a chuckle, just because I'm like, well, I wonder what the story is behind. How did this become the group chat name that you're in? Like, Brock Purdy's not an NFL quarterback. I wonder how those guys are doing now, knowing that they were in at least for an entire semester. This group chat of the boys was Brock Purdy's not an NFL quarterback. What is that group chat titled now? I wonder. I've always wanted to check in with those guys. I don't know what that kid's name was. Don't know what he's up to nowadays. Maybe he's listening to the show. Maybe he can chime into the comment section.
Say
but that always made me laugh. And now every time I see Brock Purdy, like, putting up some insane stat line, he's my fantasy quarterback. I shouldn't be talking crap, but like, I always wonder what those guys are up to now.
Yeah, they're probably running the freezing cold takes account. If I had to, guess. So there was a couple other things I wanted to get to on our sports cleanup here. I don't know how we got onto Brock Purdy talk, but I'm always here for Brock Purdy talk. I saw this headline yesterday that I thought was very strange, also kind of smart, but somehow felt illegal. Alabama is hiring a former Michigan staffer on like ahead of their college football playoff matchup. It's a guy named George Hilo, I believe. He coached linebackers for Michigan 2 years ago and last year, so 2021, 2022. He is now a Alabama staffer. Alabama's done this a couple times. Like, I think they hired Sarkisian in between the end of the regular season and the playoff because Lane Kiffin was leaving. And so they hired Sarkisian, or they brought him down from analyst to offensive, something like that, something weird. Alabama's done this a couple times. Bill Belichick has done this as well.
This reminds me,
it's a Belichick move,
of Danny Woodhead. That's how Danny Woodhead got to start with the Patriots, if you remember this.
I do. I was actually thinking staffers, like when he hired McDaniels after McDaniels got fired.
But he did this with Danny Woodhead, too, because Danny Woodhead, everyone remembers the hard knock story, him with the Jets. He ends up getting cut by Rex Ryan the week before the Jets play the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's like early in the season.
Yeah, idiot.
And like that night, Danny Woodhead gets a call from the Patriots. Like, come in, bud. Like, we just want to pick your brain a little bit.
Talk to you a little bit.
They bring him in. They sign him. He ends up making an impact with the
Patriots
that
year,
and he gets a nice long career with the Patriots.
Yeah.
But the reason why the Patriots signed him in the first place was because
to scout the Jets.
The Jets cut him. And Bill Belichick saw this move and was like, I know who we're bringing in this week. And they bring in Danny Woodhead, and Danny Woodhead ends up making his money up. He's talked about this before. He actually had I'm not sure if he saw his NFL Films did a little story on him at the Omaha Country Club trying to qualify for the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
That got released yesterday, and that was a fun little watch. But that's what this move reminds me of. Like, hey, maybe this guy can make a long career of it with Bama, but if not, you feel hard pressed by how Michigan treated you this year, bud. It's time to take it out.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he got let go for a different linebacker coach that has subsequently gotten fired as well. But yeah, I know it's not illegal because he wasn't working for anybody this year, so you can hire anybody anytime you want as an analyst, especially. But it just felt like it feels a little dirty, but it's actually just super smart if you're Nick Saban. I mean, I don't know how much help he needs now that Connor Stallions is not on the case for Jim Harbaugh, but
hey, the roles are reversed now. Now Michigan's got to change up their signs.
Can we rename that segment?
To what?
The Raider Cleanup?
Nope. That's the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mike Sautter of Hurrdat Sports. Got some high school sports to cover here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sautter.
Yeah.
Mike Sautter.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Mike Sautter.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We are live on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla, Elijah Herbel here with me. We are joined now by Mike Sautter, and we are brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center. Our friends at Dingman's are the best in the business here in Omaha with their 4 great Omaha area locations. They've been family owned and operated for over 25 years. And don't just take my word for it. They've been voted first place best of Omaha for 18 years running. They can work on any make and model from Fords to Teslas because they invest in the latest technology. They also invest back in the community with every car repaired. Go to dingmans.com for more information. Sautter, what's going on, buddy?
I should have went to Dingman's yesterday. I had to get my car worked on. I need a new battery yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta go call our friend Darcy. Gotta call Darcy and get things
my fault.
taken care of there.
And Robbie, let's also note, not only do we welcome Mike Sautter to the show, we also welcome our Lincoln listeners on KFOR.
That's right.
Welcome to the show.
KFOR in Lincoln on hour number 3.
I love Lincoln.
I got distracted by Sautter over here. It's okay.
You got distracted. Me.
Yeah, you're very distracted.
You're the one all dressed up today.
I dress like this sometimes. I don't know what to tell you.
You got a cardigan, full cardigan.
Yesterday I had like the sweater.
Yeah.
Now it's just a little
button up
quarter
sweater.
zip. Little quarter zip. It's fine.
It's fine.
I don't know. What's
You
the
look
problem?
good. I'm not saying I'm just normally it's just sweats or whatever. You know?
I never wear sweats actually.
He's dressed up for the Raiola visit though. He's making sure he's wearing his Sunday best.
Listen, just in case they need somebody to like finish the deal, like finish the sale. I'm
calling
ready.
Ravi.
Hey,
I'm ready to go.
the speaking of Raiola thing, is it? No, I don't have a joke. I was gonna have a joke here. The fact that it's raining and gloomy and whatever on his first full official day.
No, listen,
It's gonna rain all day.
We don't need any negativity around
doom
here.
and gloom.
We don't need any negativity around here.
Is his career as a Cornhusker going to be doom and gloom because of
why you got to be like that?
Is it a sign?
It's a sign that the rainy days are ending. We're going to be heading into a brighter future.
That's what
positive spin on this. In December, whenever you get precipitation, at least it's not snow.
Warm enough to not be
it's
snow.
Warm enough to not be snow, and I think that's what's on the bright side of life. Things are turning around.
Yeah, if it was
like a blizzard,
if it was some degrees colder right now,
but see, it's heating up.
This would be a disaster. We wouldn't have left our house.
It's heating up for Nebraska football.
How fitting would that be, though, if it's a snowstorm and Raiola's plane just circling above the airport, it can't actually land, and they got to go back to Georgia?
It's like, I'm trying to commit. Just let me land.
Good thing he's already been here numerous times.
Yeah, I think he's got a pretty good feel for all of his numerous visits with Uncle Donnie. Let's go before we get into high school basketball and stuff like that. I know not a ton of super great games this week, but there has been
not a ton.
Well, I'm trying to be generous
here.
I know there's been some really competitive games in weeks past, but before we get to that, you were mentioning off air some pretty big gets for UNK. On the football.
Yeah,
football
UNK. As far as commitments are concerned, they got 2 of the best running backs right now. Jamez Ross from Omaha North committed to UNK, and Brady Bosquet committed to UNK, the Elkhorn South running back. So the 2 running backs were in the Class A final, and 2 running backs that were very productive years this year, both committed to Kearney. So
big gets for Kearney.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
I think they needed to. I think they probably needed to get back into in-state recruiting a little bit, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I would.
Yeah, sorry. Jamez Ross went to
West
Side.
not
My
North.
bad.
Yeah, that's
Gosh, wow, I knew that too.
I
I was at North last night, so that's why.
It's fine. So I was speaking of recruiting and Nebraska kids. Chase Lofton got another offer this week as well.
Mm-hmm.
Super highly recruited guy.
Yeah. Listen, on Chase Lofton, this is how good tight ends are in Nebraska right now.
That was my follow-up question.
Yeah, like the position or the people that they slate to play in that.
Yeah.
I mean, Miami is coming to Nebraska to take a look at a couple of tight ends.
Yes.
That's what?
Out of context, that is hilarious, but
yeah,
it is.
You know what?
Yes.
But you know what I'm saying? That's
a lot of people go to Miami to look at some tight end.
Tight end, tight end.
Yeah,
Miami.
Yeah, that's
yes,
not the tight end house.
That's different. So and
I was talking about South Beach. So.
Yeah.
Taking my talents to South Beach.
Now I get that. Oh. No, Shane, that's actually pretty good.
It was a good joke.
That's pretty good. It just went right
we just missed
past
it.
my head.
Well, you know, the married guy is the non-married guy. You know,
it slid right over this bald head. No, it's tight end. Tight ends, Nebraska. Chase Lofton, offer from Miami. That's another
offer
one.
From Miami, offer from Texas A&M a couple days ago.
Right. So kind of blowing up. But I'm going to throw another name in here, and it's a guy that was the Iron Mike's Class C1 tight end.
Okay.
Is Ryman Ziebert from Platteview.
Okay.
Just put the tape on, right? He is running away from guys. He's 6'5"-ish. We'll go with roughly 6'5", give or take. Super athletic, can go up and catch it. Runs really well. Miami went and checked him out too when they were here. Okay. So
and
he is
what
junior.
class is junior? Okay, so he's 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like he's a guy that is gonna get some momentum that people need to maybe start keeping that name in the back of their head.
Okay.
Ryman Ziebert from Platteview is he needs to probably belong in the conversation here.
Do you have any theories? Because it's a little ridiculous, the number of high-end tight ends coming out of Nebraska. Like, it doesn't, for our population, it does not make sense.
Well, they kind of play wide receiver here.
I get that.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a bunch of dudes that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", that are big, fast, athletic, or Ingerson, who's 6'7".
Yeah.
Right? You've got a bunch of these big, athletic
Michael
dudes.
Burt is,
like, I don't... It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it does. Well, some of those,
or maybe it does, and I'm missing it.
No, not. I mean, it really doesn't.
Because it's kind of
just
strange. It's
big,
very strange.
Big, long, kind of athletic running guys. Yeah. Burt doesn't fit into. I mean, Michael Burt. When he gets in like 3 years, dude's at Iowa, and you're like, whoa, why didn't we take that guy? Is what Nebraska fans are gonna say. Because he is really athletic. He really is. They just didn't have the room, there's just so many tight ends you could take and all that. But he's a good player, and he's tough. He's physical, a real tough guy, not fake tough guy. So I don't know what it is.
I've had a theory. I think it maybe is like we play these guys at wide receivers ish,
so they like become more, develop some athleticism.
Yeah, and I'm not saying the first one. Elijah,
continue.
But
my theory's off the wall. You're actually bringing good points here.
The first person to kind of with the trend of it was Bellevue West with like Riley and Helms like a couple of years ago, right? Like they both played stand up, tight end, and it just. So then it kind of showed, okay, like we maybe can move guys out there a little bit. Most of the time, those guys are just trying to make them tackle or something.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to make Eric Ingerson a tackle. Sorry, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I think if he plays somewhere besides
it'll be defensive
tight end,
line.
It's
But
I think he's a tight end. I mean, I think that's
he can catch, he can run,
but he's
big and strong.
Really good DN too.
He's real. I think he's a D end if he changed for sure. 100% agree with you. Like if he does change
positions, it's definitely
not
DN.
tackle, it's DN.
And you could
because he can rush the pass.
I don't. If he changes positions, it's not because he's not a great tight end or doesn't have great potential here. It's just because there's such a logjam at tight ends.
Room. Yeah.
Well, and also like you could talk me into him being a better DN than he is a tight end.
Yeah.
Like you could talk me into that because like he's really,
I've seen it. Like
he's really.
I
went
to their practice at midnight this year.
Yeah.
Like it's his teammates.
He's disruptive.
He's crushing people.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Like this is like, it's 1 a.m. and dude's just killing.
Yeah. He brings the chaos hammer on that side of the ball, which I kind of, I was going to make a joke. I was like, hey, could we maybe, instead of having all these guys be tight ends, like, should we get some edge rushers, please? Like, for the love of God, it's a similar skill set. Like, let's go. Or at least a similar size.
That could happen.
You could flip some of these guys over to the other side of the ball.
You are, no question. And I even go back to like this 2025 class in state here. Like Christian Jones is a pretty good tight end too.
He is.
Like he's really good.
Everybody kind of looks at him as like a linebacker, but like
like he could be one too.
If he wasn't so prodigiously viewed as a linebacker,
right?
He would be in this same category of tight ends. Like
if you watched Westside, like dude just running away from
he
guys.
Was one of their go-to.
Yes,
one of their biggest go-to receivers.
Yeah,
on offense. Yeah, you could easily make an argument. Like Christian Jones could definitely play Division I tight end.
Yeah, no question.
Like there's no doubt
at a high level.
I have a theory.
Okay, so let's hear your off the wall theory.
I have a theory here.
Maybe wouldn't have.
Whenever you look at these tight ends, long and lanky and just athletic. A lot of times, whenever you have these tight end types across the country, these guys that are 6'7", 6'6", 6'8", but athletic, what sport are they playing?
Basketball.
They're playing basketball. And a lot of these kids are playing basketball. But you look at Nebraska and look at the time in which they were raised and the time in which their parents were raised.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents were watching the golden age of Nebraska football, the 80s, the 90s, even into the early 2000s. And then what age are they raising their kids in? This age of pain and sadness. And we need this to be better. Son, you're going to be a football player. I know you're built for basketball. We're going to have you play football. You're going to save Nebraska football. Oh, look at that. You're a tight end. You're not playing basketball. That's my off the wall theory that because of the time in which their parents lived and the age in which they were raised, their parents are saying, you know what, son? I know if you were in California, if you're in Texas, if you're a lot of other places, you're playing basketball. But because you're in Nebraska and because we missed the golden age of Nebraska football, we're going to have you play football and you're going to be the savior of Nebraska football.
I actually think you touched on something there, but it's not quite where I would have gone. Is I think because most of these guys are not 6'7", 6'8". Ingerson's an outlier, right? They're mostly like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah. Still basketball player bodies.
Well, so they're big, but like, okay, if you're 6'4" and 6'5" in Nebraska, you're often playing like a power forward spot.
Right.
That's or sometimes even center. You're dramatically undersized at the college level at that point. At tight end, you're perfect size, right? So I actually think it's because Nebraska doesn't have taller guys. Like, it's pretty rare in Nebraska to see a ton of guys over like 6'7", 6'8" on the basketball court, right?
Yeah.
Like, not a super common thing.
Yeah, no, it's not common.
So I think
I think we're reading too much into this, actually.
Well, it's weird. Like, it's super weird.
It is weird. No, I can't explain it. I really don't know.
Well, because so look at I mean, I know this is not quite as much of a phenomenon as it was for a while in like the mid 2000s, where you have these undersized power forwards playing college basketball and these NFL teams, because they saw Tony Gonzalez and Anthony Gates, they're like, hey, let's try and get this guy to be a tight end. It's just a lower level of that in my mind, where these guys are undersized basketball players, but they're perfect size football players.
Maybe it's hey, we're just behind the times a little bit in Nebraska when it comes to like high school sports and the trend of the way things go in the country. So maybe we're just catching up to the Tony Gonzalez era of because we just started doing 7-on-7 stuff like a couple years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, probably 6, maybe
whatever it was.
Yeah, it wasn't like everybody else in the country.
10, 15,
so
20 years ago.
We're just catching up to that. So like maybe that's it. I don't know. Like
we're in our Tony Gonzalez era.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, it could be something like that, because we're not there. But I do think the advent of 7-on-7 around here has absolutely helped with like
not just tight ends, but all the skill position players
for sure.
Like the receivers, especially, we've seen a lot more receivers come out.
We've had a lot more run of, traditionally
skill
you think
players.
It's like, no, we don't have that.
Yeah, Nebraska, you think linemen, fullbacks,
maybe running backs, whatever. But now we have a nice run here of football wise, just a lot of skilled dudes like coming out.
And ironically, not what's the last high major running back to come out of Nebraska? It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, Moses Bryant's like the last guy, but
he was a walk-on, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last running back in Nebraska.
In terms of the last guy that had that potential
with high major offers.
I think back to Calvin Strong, but
Calvin was amazing.
Yeah, he had
school. Jalen Bradley.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Jalen Bradley was amazing in high school. Like, he was amazing. But every time I say Jalen Bradley, I always remember the 400 whatever yard rushing game with like AJ Forbes playing center for them, who actually plays tomorrow against North Dakota State for Montana.
Go Grizz.
But that game was wild. That was a quarterfinal game against Millard West, and they rushed for like 496 or something. No one will touch that.
Yeah, that's
an 11-man game. Like, that's a big
number.
It was crazy. I still have the picture of the offensive line. Tyler Sherrill was a tackle for Bellevue West.
So even like Jalen Bradley, though, good player, obviously.
Right, but there hasn't been I see what you're saying there. But
you're not talking about a guy with like multiple Power 5 offers. The way we're talking about wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, guys with multiple Power 5 offers. Like Nebraska hasn't had that in a running back in a really long time.
I will say, and I will stand by this, based solely on play on the field, take away everything else. Calvin Strong deserved high major offers.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And that is, in my lifetime,
he's probably
the best high school football player I remember watching during my time.
Yeah, he's one of the best ever.
Like, that we've ever seen in Nebraska. Yeah,
if you had that, I don't. If people want to argue that, they're crazy.
I mean, those Omaha North offensive lines back then were also absolute monsters.
Yes.
But he was fantastic.
Look, this is the picture right here. See, that night, 496. Bellevue West.
Well, you don't think of Bellevue West?
Was that 2019? When was that?
That was 2017.
That was
that Forbes junior year or senior year?
Malcolm Lee was there, who ended up playing D-end at Iowa Western in Kansas. AJ Forbes was this was a senior year, I believe.
So that would have been 18 then?
Yeah. Still have that picture because I don't ever want to forget it. It was amazing.
Anyway, sorry. No, that's okay. I got distracted by tight ends and then 7-on-7 and then running backs.
Dave on the YouTube said we're all over the place. Dave, let me tell you why we're all over the place this morning, because the high school basketball this week is a little rough.
What's the best game this week?
Bryan Central tonight.
I'll say both those teams a little untested.
Bryan,
okay.
Omaha Bryan and versus Omaha at Omaha Central.
That's not bad.
That's a good game. That's the best game.
But it's that and then Cliff.
It's the best game.
Okay.
No question.
Okay, so I know there's been...
and that gym will be packed. Like it's a rivalry game. If you look back, like Central
historically,
Bryan, Galen Gully and those guys, like when Galen played and those guys, like they had good teams and they ran into some really good Central teams in like the Metro Holiday tournaments and stuff like that. So like there's a bit of a rivalry. It's at Central, so the gym's smaller. It'll be pretty packed in there. Like it'll be a big game. And
there's a couple of good games tomorrow too. What did you say? Because you have
give me one.
Millard West and Gretna could be all right.
Could be okay.
Could be all right.
Yeah, could be okay. Speaking of Millard West girls last night, they won. They were leading 41-8 at halftime.
That's good
against Elkhorn South, and the Gessert twins had 28 of the 41 in the first half.
That's pretty good.
Doesn't Prep play someone decent tomorrow too?
Prep is Christmas in the Cage tomorrow night.
Ooh!
And if you've never been to Christmas in the Cage. It is an experience that you should go to.
I've only ever been to the Cage once in my life, back when I was in high school in Southeast Winton.
I would recommend people, if they're not, don't have holiday parties or going to the Creighton game or whatever tomorrow, go to Creighton Prep tomorrow night. They play Papillion.
That's it. Yeah,
the Monarchs. Go to Christmas in the Cage tomorrow night. It is awesome. First of all, it's standing room only unless you get there early enough, and it is the student section is fully packed. The whole end zone is packed, like even packed where they're standing above it. And the highlight of it is the biblical characters playing a basketball game against the non-biblical Christmas characters at halftime. Okay. And there's it's skitted out, right? It's a skit. So you have I think it was last year or 2 years ago that I was there. The Grinch come out and stole the ball and stuff so they're
how dare he steal the ball from Joseph and Mary?
Anyway, so that's but Dave, that's why there's not.
Well, that'll be fun to go to.
Yeah,
as an experience.
If you haven't experienced it, they need to.
So last week there were some very good games. Was that Millard North Bellevue West was last week?
Yeah, there were great games last week. Millard North Bellevue West was last week. Millard North won, and then Westside Gretna was a phenomenal game, like a high school game where both teams shoot over 50%, but Westside shot 60% from the field and from three,
which is crazy.
Like in high school,
yes.
And it was back and forth. I watched the stream of it. I mean, it was back and forth. I mean, just you hit a big shot. No, you hit one. No, here you make a off balance three.
Everybody hits a big shot.
It was such a cleanly played game too. It was amazing. And Westside's really good. think they're pretty good. Gretna's pretty good. High school basketball this year, the top in A, the top 6, 7, 8, any given night. If they played each other, any given night, they could beat each other.
Yeah, let's say a game that flew under the radar with a team that's kind of in the back end of the 6, in my opinion. Pius and Bellevue West last week.
Right,
Flew under
close,
the radar.
yeah.
It was a very, very good
Yeah.
game. That Pius team is still gelling a little bit. I know
Right.
Bellevue West is kind of in the same boat, but
Bellevue,
that was a
Pius
very,
is,
very good game.
Yeah, Pius is gonna be, good, right? Like I think Trayson will be dominant because of who they play this year. Like no one is gonna touch that.
He's like what, 6'10"?
Yeah, he should average 20. He should average 20 and 14.
Yeah.
Like he'll probably end up averaging about like 8, 16 and 9,
8,
10.
9, yeah.
Yeah, which is still great, but like he's capable of more.
He had a possession last week where he had 4 offensive rebounds in the same possession.
Yeah, I mean, no one can.
He also had 3 missed shots.
Right. Yeah. But there's no
the Moses Malone special.
I mean, they're
the Nikola Jokic special.
Their guard play needs to be better. I watched them against Millard North opening night. And they're in that, they're like 9-10 in our coaches poll right now. And so it's gonna be fun. Like the Metro tournament semifinals will be pretty fun. It'll be like a toss-up if everybody's healthy and everything. Like you just don't know who's gonna win. I mean, Papio South beats Prep because Bryson Ball, I'm just gonna say my guy, Bryson Ball, is killing right now. Like 30 a game. Like, I mean, we're talking against Prep, he is 33 and 7 of 14 from 3. And then the next day he has 35 against Lincoln North Star, who is a little shorthanded right now anyway, too. But like they're actually going to be pretty good, I think, by the end of the year.
Before we get you out of here, Sautter, really fast, not to cut you off here, but you mentioned ball, and I've been.
Wait, am I staying here?
If you want to, we're gonna talk to Anna next about volleyball.
That's fine. I'll stay. I gotta be at Costco at 10. Anyway, go ahead.
I've been wondering this question though, from your perspective right now, for a neutral fan, just wants to go see some great basketball players. Is ball atop your list of guys to go see?
Amari Bynum.
Amari Bynum. Okay.
100%, no question.
Central Brian tomorrow night. Go see
Tonight.
Amari Bynum. Tonight. Excuse me. Tonight.
Amari
Creighton
Bynum
Preps tomorrow night. Right?
Who else is on that list?
Amari Bynum is the most like God-given talented like prospect in Nebraska, like no question. Right now, no question.
Any other names on the list people to check out?
Yeah, Millard North, just what they return, all those guys, Derek Rollins, and then Westside's really good, just to guard you really well. Caleb Benning's their defensive stopper. CJ's good. Kevin Stubblefield needs a lot more credit for what he's doing. He's playing really well.
Yeah.
And played really well last year. But, I mean, I think Class A is really kind of wide open. What North did last night to Southwest, they smacked them they punched them in the mouth, and Southwest did not respond. So, yeah, it was good.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Anna Bellinghausen live from Tampa, Florida, where Nebraska will play for a national championship in volleyball on Sunday.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for this last hour, KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi Lulla, Elijah Herbel here with me, Mike Sautter joining us as well. We are efforting Anna Bellinghausen live from Tampa. She might be a little busy. I don't know what she's got going on.
Hungover for sure.
Just busy partying.
I have a question for Anna when she comes on here, because just the personalities of the people that I know she's with
down there for
Airbnb is not her.
Wait, it's an Airbnb? That's where they got them in?
I think so.
That's
right?
better than a hotel room, honestly.
Is she here?
Yeah. She's here. We can find out from her.
All right, Anna Bellinghausen, our very own Hurrdat Sports correspondent down in Tampa, Florida. Anna, how are you this morning?
Great. How are you guys?
We are doing well. First of all, Sautter wants to know what the vibes are like in the Airbnb.
Yeah, what are the vibes like? Because I know. I know.
I didn't.
Go ahead.
Please speak, Mike. No, Mike. I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I know my guy Jacob, and I know John a little bit, and I don't know Kyle that much, but I'm imagining it's a lot of you and Kyle talking to each other, because Jacob and John don't really speak very much.
Okay, it's funny you say that. John actually told us some amazing stories. So he's been around the photography business forever. And it was like sitting around hearing your grandpa tell war stories. Countless anecdotes of pictures. And he was telling me about when he took the photo of Sue destroying Blaine Gabbard's ankle at the Mizzou game. And he even sent me the photo at about 1:30 a.m. last night. So we're really getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining Jacob in a dark room watching basketball and like
100%.
taking notes.
Yeah.
And like nobody knows
That's what it
quite
is.
where Jacob
And
is.
one
It turns out he's just on the side.
basketball court,
And what? Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
love Jacob. Jacob's the best.
Jacob is, I mean, as someone that has traveled with him and roomed with him. Yeah. I mean, if there's a game, we're not going out to dinner or nothing. Like, we're locked in the room and we're putting basketball and we're watching and we're talking about it. And then we're talking about whatever else happened basketball wise while the game that we're watching is happening, you know. Yeah, it's wild.
Jacob strikes me as the most low maintenance travel partner ever. Really?
Mike doesn't agree.
No, he is. He's pretty easy going.
As long as somebody has league pass, he'll be fine.
Yeah, or yeah. Yeah.
Anna, so last night, obviously, you're at the match. Nebraska, I mean, just dominant last night against Pitt. What was it like as you're watching that match play out? At what point did you kind of realize, like, oh, Pitt's not going to be able to do this?
Mm-hmm. It was pretty back and forth in that first set. I think it was tied 9-9, and then Nebraska took control and didn't really let up. And I think halfway through that first set, and definitely in set 2, you're like, all right, Nebraska's got a control on this thing. And it's really impressive because I didn't think many people thought this would be a 3-set match. I think it was a 4 or 5 in most people's eyes. I thought it was going to be a 5-match set or game, and I thought that as well about the Wisconsin-Texas matchup. So we got some quicker matches, which was a little bit nicer on the schedule because it was a 7 p.m. start here in Tampa, and then the second one was supposed to start around 9:30. So it was a late night no matter what. But Nebraska sweeping Pitt. After watching the game, obviously not surprising in just the defense, but I mean, it was number 1, number 2 defenses in the nation matching up. And that I think is really impressive that Nebraska handled Pitt so well offensively. And then Becca Alec, man, she just took over that game. And literally you can just see that look in her eyes that she's just not going to lose. And I'm sure you guys saw it on the broadcast too, but she's just so fun to watch.
It's Anna Bellinghausen with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio as we talk Final Four, as she's done in Tampa Bay. And Anna, one of the things that Andy Jackson said post-match was they could really feel it whenever they got their block going in the first set, that the Pitt hitters were kind of feeling them, like a look in their eyes of doubt from the hitters once that block started getting going. And with the young hitters that Pitt had, could you feel that courtside, that the momentum was really taken by that Husker block? Because when you're dealing with inexperience, and maybe that's not the right word to use with Pitt, but there is that element of being there and seeing that now as you're a freshman, you're going up against one of the best blocks you've seen all year. That self-doubt starts to creep in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking at the Pitt pin hitters' faces, and they were just frustrated. They didn't know how to really work around Nebraska's block. And I mean, I think there was 10 blocks within the first set and a half. So that's a pretty astronomical number right there to have so early against another really good defensive team. But yeah, it was just a lot of frustration in the faces on the Pitt side. And you could tell it was really getting to them mentally because, I mean, there's only so many times in a match that you have, you know, your best swing attempts, and for them to be stuffed by Becca Alec pretty much every time, it's not a good feeling. It's definitely demoralizing. So yeah, I did see the body language from Pitt, and some heads were down, and that's not to say they didn't keep a fight up, but it's still, like you said, Elijah, very, very demoralizing.
Anna, I was really interested about the fan sort of experience on the broadcast last night, because it sounded like on television a Nebraska home match essentially. And, you know, I go back to Pitt's coach, Coach Fisher, saying, you know, I don't think the crowd is going to end up being a factor here. How much of a factor did you think the Nebraska fan base was last night? Because on the broadcast, it seemed pretty dramatic.
Oh, it was huge. It was a staggering difference, even between the Nebraska and then Wisconsin fans, too. Wisconsin fans were definitely not even as loud as Nebraska fans. It was Huskers all the way, for sure. All the chants, everything you expect when you go to a match at Devaney was pretty much there. Fans were literally like banging on the boards, like because it's a hockey arena, so they were literally like banging on them. It was so loud, and they were doing it like right behind the pit bench, and Stu was there, so I don't know how you can lose the Stu's at the arena as well. But no, the atmosphere was amazing for Nebraska, and it definitely probably gave Nebraska a point or two at some points of the match, and definitely confidence. And that was one of the big points I brought up post game in talking to some of the players was just how much does that actually affect you? And they're saying it gives us so much confidence and just lets us go out there and be free and not be in a hostile environment. And there was a pit section that they had, I would say, probably 100, 200 fans in. But that was, nothing against the thousands that Nebraska brought.
Anna, as we move on to the match on Sunday against Texas, did you get to stay and watch the Wisconsin-Texas match?
Yes, I did.
So as you watch that match,
that was a beatdown.
Who did you think is the better matchup for Nebraska as you were watching that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said it even pre-Final Four. Texas is the better matchup for Nebraska, but I thought it was really going to be Wisconsin. Obviously, they just didn't have their best night last night, and I'm sure that was very disappointing for Wisconsin in the hopes they had, especially knowing that they were going to face Nebraska, a team that they had beaten this year. But Texas, I mean, man, their outside hitters, Asia O'Neal and Maddie Skinner, are just hands down some of the best hitters in the nation, and they really showed out. And Texas did a great job with the service line too. Just had the fundamentals down. We're kind of just putting on a clinic against Wisconsin, and Badgers just didn't have an answer for Texas. So I would say Texas played their best match of the season last night, and that's dangerous for a Nebraska team. But I also think the Huskers played one of their better matches of the entire season as well. So you kind of have two teams on the up and up, and it's going to be a fun one. Obviously, either Wisconsin or Texas would have been a fun rivalry matchup, but Nebraska-Texas always just seems to mean a little bit more.
And I know you're down there to cover, but were you secretly rooting for Nebraska, Wisconsin? A lot of Husker fans, I think, wanted Texas, but to me, it was the poetic justice of Wisconsin being the only team to beat you this year. You leave no doubt if you get a chance against them in the national title game.
Yeah, I think I said this before too, but it would have been just a storybook ending to have Nebraska, Wisconsin, just because of the battles we've seen throughout the year. And I mean, one of my favorite moments of the season was the 5-setter in Lincoln, which was amazing when Nebraska was number 2 and Wisconsin was 1. So, yeah, it would have been a fairy tale ending, I think, for it to be Nebraska, Wisconsin, and it would just have to go to 5 sets. But I don't think anyone's upset about getting the Texas matchup. Again, I think it's better for Nebraska, and especially being a team that they haven't seen this season, so maybe they can throw in a little bit more of surprises than they could against Wisconsin, a team that knows them so well. So it would have been fun seeing the Wisconsin matchup, but I think Texas and renewing a little Big 12 rivalry will be pretty fun as well.
Can you get a chant started in the arena on Sunday that said there was no seconds on the clock?
Yeah, so that's my plan for the mini mic question today. Is was there 1 second left? We'll have to run that by some fans.
Hey, find a beach somewhere.
We'll look for it. It's kind of cloudy here, Mike.
Oh. Jacob won't go. I know that.
If he does, he's taking his laptop. He's watching his basketball. Anna Bellinghausen, Hurrdat Sports down in Tampa, covering Nebraska volleyball. Make sure you check out Hurrdat Sports social media channels for all of their stuff there. Anna, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Coming up next, Matt Vrzal here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now let's find out what Matt Vrzal is better at. Telling stories or making pizza.
Matt.
Matt's an exceptional young man.
Matt Vrzal.
Happy birthday, Matt.
You know, Matt, he's a tremendous athlete.
Matt Vrzal.
Come on, Matt, I'm with you.
You know, like Matt Versel, you're one of the sexiest people in the world, but you're not one of the most beautiful. How does that happen?
Here is Matt Vrzal.
All right, Matt, thank you very much.
Wrapping up the show here on a Friday, as we do every week, with our guy, Matt Vrzal, former Husker, owner of Paisans Pizzeria. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. Verz, how are you this morning?
Good, boys. How are you?
We are doing well, just riding high off of a Nebraska volleyball win last night. And
a cryptic Dylan Raiola tweet.
Yeah, well, you know, just trying to decipher the tweets of teenagers is always fun. Verz, I wanted to ask you about some other news that came down for Nebraska this week with Bryce Benhart returning to Nebraska for one more season. I think he's probably one of the most I think he's changed the narrative of his career at Nebraska as much as anybody over the last year. What did you see from him where he actually improved on the offensive line to where he wasn't the punchline of that group anymore?
I think he just did a nice job of working on the areas that were holding him back. And that's, you know, hip mobility. I think they had a vision before that, you know, you got to weigh this much and you got to lift this many pounds, when
in reality, you know, lifting a bunch is great if you can lift it fast. If you can move those weights quickly, you know, if you're squatting 600 pounds and it takes you 8 seconds, that really doesn't translate well to football. But if you're moving 400 pounds in 0.2 seconds, probably translates a little bit better in what you want to get done. And then his hips were just a ton better than they had ever been since he's been here. So that was good to see. That means, you know, Coach Campbell, who I think is probably the MVP of what they had right behind Tony White, you know, they assess things and they fix them. And that's really all you can ask from your strength and conditioning.
It's Matt Vrzal with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio as we wrap up a Friday. And Matt, how bullish are you on what the offensive line can be next season? Matt Rule obviously bullish with that raise to Raiola. I do believe that is results driven, not any other potential related things that could be going on there. I do believe that is based on the results he saw in the field. In terms of the progress you saw in year one and what you think they can get done in another offseason, how bullish are you on year two of this offensive line under Rule?
I think that at the end of the day, coaching a position gets down to this, right? Knowledge of scheme, and then finding your guys that are self-motivated and being able to brush up on technique. Okay? That's like I say over and over again. By week 4, my kids have seen every defense they're going to see. They have to take ownership of the game. You know, they have to make the fixes. I can't go out and play. I'll help you, and we'll make sure you're as technically sound as we can make you. So for me, the only thing that frustrated me is I would love to see some of those young guys just get 1 or 2 series. You had 4 games to use it. I would love to see them play it. I'm sure they were being respectful to their older guys. But that was just something I'm like, man, just take a chance, put them in, you know, see what you got, see what it looks like. But they didn't. So I think if Donovan stays on his path and continues again to work with Coach Campbell, where they make those body changes, right? They make those bodies start to look a little bit more like what we see on the teams that are going to be playing in the big games. That's probably more what I'm looking at. I think the X's and O stuff, they're getting it. Their technique got better throughout the year, but that's where I would see probably more of my focus.
Vrzal, in your experience and kind of from what you know, how much do those position coaches, I guess, kind of collaborate with the strength and conditioning coach of being like, hey, I need my guys to be able to do X, Y, and Z, like get them, like put together a plan to get them there. How much of that goes on, or is it more general or coming from kind of the coordinators and the head coach?
Oh, no. That's all position driven.
Okay.
Like that should be, they should be.
They get real specific.
They should be thick as thieves. Like
okay.
they should hang out. They should go, you know, and see the workouts. The strength coach should probably be like, hey, this is, you told me this. This is how I'm going to combat it. Why don't you come down Tuesday, 2 weeks of Tuesdays, and come check this out and see if this is kind of what we're gearing for. Because you watch a player over and over again, right? Your eye becomes finite too. Like you see, your former player brain knows what's not there, and so you're going to sit there and say, okay, now I can see him making these movements that we're going to make on the field now. Okay, so now I know that this is like, hey, great, Coach Campbell, keep heading in this direction. This is awesome. Or like, hey, you know, I still think player X is deficient in this, player Y can't do this. So if we can kind of shift their stuff around, we still got plenty of time to do it. Let's do it. You know, let's get it going.
Verz, you mentioned earlier some of the young guys that you wish you had gotten to see play. Obviously, we saw Justin Evans-Jenkins, and I know you really like his kind of toughness and mindset there. I know a lot of people are very high on Sam Sledge. Who of that group that we didn't see play this year are you kind of the most eager to see on the field?
Sledge.
Yeah.
Sledge is an athlete. Okay. So all due respect, we've had a run where we've got these guys that they get them almost, they used to, not the current regime. Too bulky, too slow-footed, you know, where you're not quick with things. Sam Sledge ain't about that life. Like he's an athlete. Like he started at tight end in high school. and begrudgingly moved to the line. But then when he went to the line, listen, man, genetics are genetics. There's sledges that have been great at Nebraska for decades. That isn't by happenstance. That's in their blood. That's what they're built to do, and they do a damn good job of it. So I'm really excited to get the chance to see him.
Versus Sautter here. Is Sledge gonna play guard, center? What? Both? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, in the game would be great. I don't know. Is Ben Scott coming back?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
guard.
Okay, so I would probably say then for the start of his career,
right,
you're going to see him at a guard because I think Scott provides you just stability.
Mm-hmm.
He's not flashy. Now, Sledge will probably have reps at center. So if something happens to Scott, then Sledge just hops in there and away we go. So that's kind of just a nice cover.
Sam Sledge was like the most undervalued, rated, whatever high school football player in Nebraska. It was so bad. Like he's so.
I don't. Yeah, I cannot disagree with you there.
As a Southeast guy, I'll say don't sleep on Gunnar Gatula either.
No. I'll sleep on. I will 100%.
You can be wrong all you want.
There's reasons for that. Are you making pizza right now? Are you making lunch right now?
Yeah, we had one of our guys, Chase. He several of the boys are heading skiing after they help us out here with lunch. We got Scott lunch, of course, and so Chaser must have stayed out a little bit too late. Now, he did get baptized yesterday, which is pretty cool. I went over and watched that. He was excited about that, so I went and saw that. So I don't know if there was a post-baptism party that you go to.
Yeah, you.
But
I'm so confused.
fully live the life. But yeah, so Chase isn't here, so we are behind the proverbial 8 ball a little bit. I keep waiting for Damon Benning to show up, but he has yet to show up. I
think he needs
a job. Free time.
Matt, can you confirm or deny reports? We have confirmation that Dylan Raiola is wheels up to Lincoln. I believe he's landing at 10:02 at Epley. Can you confirm or deny reports that he's stopping by for lunch?
I don't know. The last time I talked to Dom, he said he'd stop in when he was in town. So we'll see. I'll keep him posted if he comes in. He's gonna be pissed though because we're gonna be closed for lunch.
Matt Vrzal, the only person in Nebraska who is not bending over backwards for Dylan Raiola this week.
I'm
apparently.
not either, actually. Yeah. Verse. So,
what was the feedback on the Iron Mics?
The Iron Mics were good. I only got one kid that said I was sleeping on him in a tweet or DM or something. And that was it. So
you ready for Mike Ditka to sue you?
What'd you say?
Are you ready for Mike Ditka to sue you?
No. Why? Is he going?
Copyright infringement?
I don't know. I think we're all right on that one. It did cross my mind actually. So, but no, the Iron Mics, the Mike Sautter All-State team it was a lot of work. Especially when I was out last week. We'll go air quotes on the out for the entire week last week, if you know what that means. So
little dude called you out. Where's he from?
Millard West kid.
Oh, you made me look through your Twitter?
No, I don't want to say his name. No. Only one guy with the sleeping emoji or whatever, and here's my huddle film, which is like, okay, bud. So, yeah, but it's all right. It was.
We should do a live breakdown of his huddle film here on the show.
Yeah, no. It was good, and thank you and the other coaches for the feedback because you and I did talk about it, and you gave me a couple names, and I'm like, oh yeah, good job.
Got a lot going on, like it's basketball season, like Sautter Christmas time.
It is. It is
Matt,
very much so.
Matt, last thought here, 10 seconds. What's the perfect pizza for a national championship Sunday?
Cheese pizza of champion.
Cheese pizza?
There we go. We're going with the basics.
What is cheese? The gold standard of pizza. Come on.
There we go. The gold standard of pizza, the gold standard of volleyball. Hopefully Nebraska on Sunday. Verse, we appreciate your time as always. Have a good weekend, bud. That's Matt Vrzal as we wrap up the week. Thank you to Elijah Herbel. Thank you to Mike Sautter as well. Have a good weekend.